Welcome in, everyone, to another live Seahawks Syndicate show. Tonight, I'm the host, Bryce Coutts, and with me, I've got Dan Viens, I've got Cain, and I've got Mookie Alexander right below me. Hey, I got that right on the first try, guys. Give me credit for that. I practiced that.
Yes.
That took me like 30 minutes to figure out how to do that right with the whole backwards thing. So anyhow, guys, welcome back in. It's the end of the month. It's getting there, I guess. Halloween's in 2 days, so the Seahawks have had quite the start to this season, though. We're halfway home. So the theme for tonight is kind of what have we learned about this team, what's next for this team, and who's for real. So I'll start with Mookie for you. What have you learned about the Seattle Seahawks team through the first half of this season?
That this year's 5-2 record feels more real than the 5-2 record from a couple of years back. So this feels like the first year in a good while where I think the Seahawks have earned the record. I know there's the saying, you are what your record says you are, but I think the Seahawks have kind of tested the limits of that rule lately, where like the 2020 season, they were 12-4, but they had the point differential of a 10-16 because they were winning so many close games and against a pretty poor opposition too. And then you would have like the 2019 team that finished a yard away from winning the NFC West title. And yet they were, again, playing everybody close or getting blown out in their losses. And the end result was a point differential that suggests they were pretty fortunate to make the playoffs. Even though the metrics were friendly, they were kind of living on a knife's edge. Well, yes, they're playing a lot of close games this year, but I also think that the 5-2 is very much earned. In other words, they should be closer to 7-2 than say 3-4. I mean, they got the emphatic win over New Orleans, which we have rarely seen over the last few years. I think the Jacksonville win was comfortable enough. And then even the Houston win, despite their best efforts to try and make it a game, was comfortable enough for Houston was down double digits most of that game. And they won by double digits against Pittsburgh. And I know Pittsburgh is kind of hitting the skids a little bit, but still to win by 14 on the road, Aaron Rodgers' home debut and everything as a Steeler, I think that's a significant deal. So, I think that the Seahawks team, one of the things that I think I've concluded is that the mantra and the offseason push to be more physical hasn't quite lived up to the billing, but you can still see the goal is very much in progress. And I think that they've accomplished that on the defensive side of the ball at all three levels. And then at the offensive side, they're starting to work on it a little bit more. There's no denying that the offensive line is better. Not saying it's great, but it's much better than what we've seen in years past. And that is due to how much more physical and more sound that they're playing. And it's physical without being reckless, physical without being stupid. Like you notice they're not committing all sorts of undisciplined penalties that we were kind of bemoaning with the end of the Pete Carroll era, and even sometimes during the height of Pete's career. So I think that we're starting to see, as Greg Bell noted on some fellow named Bryce Coutts' podcast the other day, them taking the mold of Mike Macdonald's team. So we're kind of seeing them transition away from it being, it's Macdonald's the head coach, but there's still remnants of the Pete Carroll era from a coaching standpoint to, this is Macdonald's vision. We're watching it play out in real time. And they haven't played their best ball yet. They're 5-2. And I'd like to think that the best ball is still to come. And the schedule, if I were to tell you Washington would come here 3-5 and pretty much teetering on the brink of being well out of the playoff race, you probably wouldn't believe me back in May. Or that the Minnesota Vikings would regress as hard as they have, and then, of course, deal with quarterback injuries. So suddenly things have changed a bit where the games that looked tougher back in May may still be tough when the games actually play out. But those are games now where you look at them and go, Seattle really has no excuse to me to not finish with double-digit wins this year.
So, Cain, how are you, my friend? And for you, what have you learned about this team? I know, you and me have had a few discussions over the past couple weeks here on different shows and such when we did our live stream and whatnot. But for you, what have you learned the most about the Seattle Seahawks team in 2025?
I've learned Klint Kubiak is certainly as legitimate as we had, I think, hoped for in his ability to bring the returns he has with a new quarterback without losing the receiver like he did this offseason. He has come in and shown you what looks like. This is what an NFL offense looks like. The details within it that are driven, the modifications in there, the adjustments. I think that he has done a really good job. Sam Darnold is taking another step to his game. And quite frankly, between him and Geno and some of the Baker stuff that's out there and some of the other quarterbacks that are out there, it has me really actively rethinking this whole quarterback process a little bit from where it's been kind of in a, I'd not call it brain dead, but almost a lazy place of just go draft a guy, just go draft a guy, go draft. And we all go, well, yeah, that's what you do. It's what you do. We're kind of lemmings about it, I think, a little bit. And maybe we need to be rethinking this a little bit on maybe the better pathways to go find a guy who's gone through the ups and downs. And now you're just getting the juicy benefits of where they're at in their career. And you're able to really take advantage of that. That being said, he looks like the man of now and the man of the future for us at the quarterback position. And that is maybe as big and wonderful a thing for us here, both for this year and for the next 2 years, is we're hoping to get into the Super Bowl window, because now it's not just getting by with a game manager who can kind of show you some moments, but a guy that can, I'm not saying put the cape on his back and become a superhero, but certainly can elevate the play of those guys around him. Jaxon Smith is the truth, and maybe the second most talented receiver we've ever had here, only because we had the most freakish, or one of the most freakish ever to walk along the path, but he's right there next to him, just in a different kind of fashion. And he's actually realizing all of his great potential. And the defensively, I think the past 2 weeks has shown you, in my opinion, and we'll maybe have a chance to get into this a little bit about where it was early on this year to where it's gone. The past 2 weeks show you what you need to be defensively in the modern era. And I think Mike, a little bit in this early part of the year, started to want to lean too much in on just staying front four and not many stacked boxes, not many similar pressures. But when he's at his full tilt, when he's in his bag, when he's letting it loose, when he's not playing with a fear-based approach, like we've seen the past couple of weeks, that's what you see his defense can now do to offenses, which is completely disassemble them.
So, Dan, you're the final person I'm going to ask this question to. And for you, what have you learned about this team? Like, you've watched this team way back from when they started in 76 to all the way forward now. What is this version of this? I'm taking Dan.
Sure.
I'm asking Dan because we were on a show earlier and he had to take a shot a little bit at me and my youngness in that regard. But what I'm not taking a shot here.
Turnabout fair play, Dan.
Ageism is a real thing, and it's we all.
But what I wanted to get from you, Dan, is you've seen a lot of renditions of this team, and you've seen a lot of different teams at the halfway point be really successful up to that point in the season and kind of fall off. What have you learned about the Seahawks team, and does it give you maybe a little bit more hope that that doesn't happen this time around with them being 5-2 and the kind of trajectory that they're on?
Well, it reminds me of that 1957's team that had the leather helmets, and yeah, I won't let you live that down.
I got my paw.
I gotta make stuff up on the fly because these two guys are going to take all my answers by the time you get around to me. I guess that's just the downside of going last in the rotation. I've learned two things about this team that really stand out to me. Number one is you're allowed to get better. And what I mean by that specifically about the offensive line, that there was this mindset going into it. And there's some people that still think this way, that the history impacts the future. And that because we've been bad on the offensive line for so many years, we don't get to have nice things. We don't get to enjoy what it's like to have a good offensive line. They have lived in the 30s ever since Next Gen Stats came out with their pass block win rate and run block win rate. They've been 30th, 31st, or 32nd every year since those stats have started to be compiled. They're 10th and 11th right now as we sit here today. They're 5th in the league in scoring at points per game. Their time to throw, their pressure to sack conversion rate, all those numbers are better than they've been in a very long time. And it just speaks to the conviction, I think, that Mike Macdonald went out this offseason and went about the process of selecting his next offensive coaching staff, not just Klint Kubiak, but the staff that he brought with them. And you can see the improvement there. And we all agree that there's one spot on that offensive line that could be upgraded without too much effort. And there's another spot that maybe would be a candidate to be upgraded at some point. And yet they still are able to succeed like that. The other thing that I think we're learning about this team, they deal really well with adversity. In game, when there are moments that kind of have you clinching up a little bit, because in years past, that's when we would let games get away. I'm thinking about the Arizona Thursday night game in particular. Like that game just felt like one that in the past, once the momentum shifted, they weren't going to get it back and Arizona would have pulled that game out. They're able to bounce back quickly. I'm thinking about specific things like Sam Darnold and the bad interception. I think it was really the first bad interception he's thrown, the one against Houston last Monday night, where it was just like out of his hand, should have never thrown that ball. The very next play, when he's backed up against his own end zone, he hits JSN on that first pass for like 30 or 40 yards, one of the as good as you can throw a football. And then even in a bigger picture, the way that Mike Macdonald bounced back from the Tampa Bay game, said afterwards, that's on me, didn't have a good enough plan, didn't make the right play calls. And what we've seen that defense do since then, like his ability to identify problems and then fix them. And then the teams just seem to have that grit and that toughness to bounce back from tough moments. And I think with what's coming up ahead of them, that bodes really well.
Those are all great points. And guys, for me, like the one thing I've learned about this team is it's so nice, to Brandon's point, to have a competent offensive coordinator that allows you to actually function normally and not get in these situations where we're sitting there going, okay, are we going to have to pull a rabbit out of our, hat to win this football game because we haven't sustained any offense, and asking Mike McDonald's defense to basically win games. And it's okay to do that from time in and time out, but not as consistently as what we've had Seahawks teams do in the past, because our offense has been such a roller coaster for consistency, and not just in the run game, but in the pass game. So I think the biggest thing I've learned is like having a competent offensive coordinator with a very skilled defensive-minded head coach can bode pretty well for you. So let's kind of transition this, guys, into the state of this team. We talked about it a little bit here with what we've learned, but Dan, I'll start with you, so that way you're not always going last in these segments, so that way you can get your kicks in there first. What single theme for you has defined Seattle's season so far? Is it the identity? Is it the resilience? Or could it be considered some of the inconsistencies with this team through the first 7 weeks?
I'm going to steal a word that Stacey Ross used when I asked her a very similar question on the show today that was just posted a couple hours ago. It's balance. It's how, we sit here and we talk about, it's already come up tonight, they haven't put a full game together outside of the New Orleans game. And I think we can all agree that, you take into account the quality of the opponent there. But against a good team, they haven't put it all together. We're still waiting for that. And yet they're like 4th or 5th in the league in point differential. And the farther you get into the season, like the more of an accurate indicator that is about the strength of a team. And they're able to win. It's like the baseball analogy, right? With the starting pitcher, when he doesn't have as good fastball on any given day, he's got a plan B he can go to. They're figuring out a way to win these games and go 5-2 in a very legitimate manner, as Mookie said, without putting it all together. That we are seeing one unit pick up the other, one player pick up the other at times when not everything is functioning as well as you'd like it to. I think that's the thing that impresses me the most about this team and gives me the most confidence that they're going to be in this and they have a legitimate shot to win this division.
So Brandon, for you, I'm going to ask you a little bit of a different question here. Has this 5-2 start been more about the talent that's assembled on this roster and it kind of maturing and coming into focus, or is it got to do with the coaching? Oh, Brandon, I think you're on mute.
That's my
your
bad.
cat muted your
yeah,
mic.
no, I was muting until she started going on the crack. She starts doing the talkative thing, and it's like, yeah, shh. Come on. Yeah. I think it's hard to say that it's all one way or the other one on this one from an extreme standpoint. I think that you have a bit of a mixed bag stuff going on here. For instance, I certainly think, especially the past couple of weeks with McDonald, him really going and helping out the defense in a major way, that shows you it's coaching. Yeah, you've also got Neiman Wari back on the football field. Your health is slowly improving there, where your cornerback room isn't as decimated as it was for a game or two there. And then that's made a difference in combination with it. So that's a bit of part of it. And offensively speaking, having Lucas, having Abraham and Cross out there as what I call the two pillars out there, what is the Jokaz and Bean? Dan will know this. What's the name of those two pillars of the famous one? The Jokaz and Boaz, or there's two famous ones out there. But
I'm too old to understand your reference.
Yeah, it'll be great for a thumbnail someday. But do all that. I was kind of surprised that Bryce didn't say, well, we got to get to you first because your bedtime, huh, Bryce? Why don't you toss that one in?
Hey, I wasn't going that far. Come
yeah,
on,
you were
guys.
thinking it. You're thinking, but no, I think there's the little bit of that to, okay, your youth has come along. These guys are heading into their prime. They're rolling right now, and JSN similarly. But then with Darnold, that's not really an in-house development thing. This is a guy that's now, you made an educated guess on hoping he could become this. I don't know if the Hawks, thought there was this quite in it. I've been really, really blown away by his performance, but I think it's a bit of all of that mixed across the core on this, rather than it being sort of really more to one or the other, quite frankly, because I think it kind of depends on the part of the team you're talking about here. AJ Barner, well, yeah, kind of in there, but he's also helped by Kubiak with the scheme, getting them these options, like the built-in adjustment from Darnold, hitting him 61 yards down the field in the Jacksonville Jaguar game. where that's all just a side adjustment built into the offense. I don't think you guys would think that Grubb would probably have that particular play, much less be under center at that time of the game, even with the lead, to do that type of similar thing. I know it's just, we made a play call. Yeah, but we've seen play callers that wouldn't even do something like that in that moment or have that adjustment built in as you're trying to run down the clock. So it is all just kind of it all. I'm not trying to give you the sit on the fence answer to this one, but I do feel like it's mixed up a bit.
Well, that's fair. And I would tend to agree with you. I'm a little bit on both. I think the offensive side of things have definitely made a massive adjustment when it comes to coaching, like to the point of we have a competent offense now. And then the same token on this defense, you're seeing guys mature and get into spots and make an impact that way. So I think that's a fair assessment, Brandon, to kind of be in between on both. Mookie, question for you in this. Which underlying stat for you tells the truer story of this team's first half? Is it something on defense, whether it be the pressure rate? Is it the offensive line and it not being 30th in different metrics? What is it for you that tells the story of the first half of the season?
That Sam Darnold's sack rate is basically as low as Matt Hasselbeck's was in the 2005 season. And there's no debating the greatness of the 2005 offensive line. And it wasn't like Hasselbeck was getting the ball out in under 2 seconds all the time. He had, I dare any younger Seahawks fan who either, might not have been around in 2005 or can remember the 2005 season, or alternatively became a fan of the team during the Russ years and the Pete years, to watch some of the 2005 Seahawks games. There are plenty up on YouTube. Not all of them, but most of them are up on YouTube. Watch some of the cleanest looking pockets you'll ever see in your life. Forget, I know Shaun Alexander, of course, had his MVP season behind that line and behind Max Strong, but Matt Hasselbeck had a very efficient season that year, in part because he was protected really well. And sack rates were higher 20 years ago than they are now, or generally a little bit higher, decades past than they are these days. So the fact that Darnold is at 5% or something like that, and he's very rarely had games where he is just under constant pressure. Kubiak obviously helps in that he's not doing, hey, let's just do a straight drop back every time. No threat of play action, no nothing. And let's just run these long developing routes that take 4 seconds, and then you can throw the ball. So with Darnold, a part of it is also on him in a positive way, and that he's getting the damn ball out on time. And that was one of Hasselbeck's best traits. Now, it took him a bit to make sure that getting the ball out on time was also an accurate pass and not an interception. But when he was at his best, that it is kind of similar to how Darnold performs. And Darnold's a better athlete than Hasselbeck. I mean, Darnold's got the arm in addition to the accuracy. And much like Hasselbeck, I think his athleticism has been a bit underrated. He's certainly more mobile than Hasselbeck, and he's shown it in some of his ways to improvise. But without a offensive line that's at least mediocre, I think this offense would be faltering a bit. So, like, we know the run game issues right now. We'll get to it a little later. But if the offensive line was essentially, let's say, as bad as last year's, or even a couple of the Shane Waldron years, I don't think Darnold would be as effective, and therefore Smith-Njigba wouldn't be as effective. And essentially, that this offense would be costing them some of the games that have been closer. So, for example, the Arizona game, that might have been a loss. And that was actually one of Seattle's worst offensive line games of the season. Or I'm trying to think of some of their other close shaves, but even the Houston game, for all we know, that could have been easily a game that goes against them even worse than an 8-point win. It could have been like really going south because that team forced 4 turnovers while getting dominated most of the night. Imagine that offensive line of last year going up against that Houston defensive front. Could have been real trouble for Sam and everybody else. So it just takes some getting used to, right? It's been a long time since we could say, hey, you see the Seahawks quarterback? He's not getting pressure at an exorbitant rate. He's getting the ball out in time. He's not getting sacked 8-9% of his dropbacks. And it's been huge. I think the offense, as well as the defense, has played. One of the question marks, or among the many question marks of the Seahawks season, was, could this offense function? And could the passing offense function? And you better believe that even though it is heavily reliant on Darnold's connection with Smith-Njigba, it is functioning right now. And a lot of that is due to the offensive line not being a total sieve out there. And I also should mention, incidentally, they have not had a different offensive line starting lineup one time this year. Week 1 starting lineup is Cross, Zabel, Sundell, Bradford, and Lucas. And while I'm sure we'll have much to discuss about center and right guard, and especially right guard, there's continuity in season there that we have rarely had. Because don't forget, this time last year, Connor Williams retired. And Abe Lucas was still hurt. So we were seeing Stone Forsythe at right tackle. We were seeing Connor Williams at center, and then Oluwatimi. So there was just not that. And then Bradford eventually got hurt, and they were doing the Bradford-Haynes rotation. Then Satal Lomé comes in. This is a totally different situation where the offensive line is gelling together in the sense that they're there for every snap.
Yeah, you can't argue that. The fact that we've had the continuity this year from the start and the get-go, basically from training camp. Once Olu kind of got injured and Haynes got injured, the competition's kind of ended in those regards at center and right guard, and it's been this starting five all the way through. So it's been good to see. But let's talk about a gentleman on this team that's kind of, I think, for all of us, exceeded expectations of what we were expecting, and that's Jaxon Smith-Njigba. And the pace he's on currently would have him beat Calvin Johnson's record of single season receiving yardage. So Brandon, I'll start with you on this. What's unlocked JSN this season?
The condensed splits, because by using the condensed splits, he can play on the outside. I think he can play on the outside period at this point. I think there's a certain amount of, he can get it done there. Do I think if you aligned him out wide as an X 24/7, he would be as good as getting his amount of volume he is in the stack boxes? I'm not so sure. I think it's like Kubiak's kind of onto something with this. I think the teams aren't really used to dealing with it as well. You look at the hyper amount of stack boxes that the Seahawks are facing on this, and I think it's because of their heavy use of both, yes, the two tight ends and the 13 personnel, but then also because these condensed splits too. The combination is kind of forcing these defenses to just kind of go, it's almost kind of just that this is their all answer, I'm saying, week in and week out, even for those teams that don't even really stack boxes necessarily. They're all still coming at it that same approach. And I'm kind of going, wow, this is sort of weird, but it's setting up then the opportunity for JSN to get true one-on-ones. It's setting up the opportunity then for them. Do you have a lot of space to work with to the back end of the field for Sam to throw him open in moments, be able to go, I don't have to put this on him tight 15 yards down the field. I can lead him out to this spot right here because I've got all this green grass growing out there and there's no defenders. So I think that's also been a bit of it. Last part I just say with is just a little bit has been as well, the really lack of commitment to running the double teams his way yet. I think the first half of the Cardinal game can be the only one that really stands out in my mind where you felt a significant, like, we are going to really try to stack coverages over his way. Teams are just trying to, like Stingley last week, we'll play him one-on-one. Our best cover guy in the league, he'll hold up against him, surely, won't he? And he doesn't.
Mookie, the question I'm going to ask you, is it realistic the pace that JSN is on to continue through the second half of the season, or do you think it's going to taper off?
This is a hot streak of all hot streaks, and I think there'll be some games where he is not as much of a factor. I don't expect that this weekend because I think we've watched this Commanders defense, and I watched it a little more closely because the Commanders are kind of Seahawks, them and the Panthers, I guess, and the Titans, but the Commanders are one of the Seahawks Farm League teams because they have so many ex-Seahawks on the coaching staff, and then they've got Bobby and Jacob Martin's had a career season, it feels like, in Washington. But that Commanders defense isn't very good. They're mediocre at best. And I think that Smith-Njigba is going to feast there. But eventually some defenses are going to be able to adjust and figure out, all right, we're going to do everything to not have JSN beat us, even if it means letting the others beat you. It's like, I do not want to get beaten by number 11. That's where Jaxon Smith-Njigba is. Now, do I think he breaks Calvin Johnson's receiving yards record, which I think is 1848? I don't think so, but at this point, I can't rule it out for a couple reasons. One, he could have a 200-yard game, within the next few weeks, and as soon as Washington, for example. And then the other part is the fact that it is a 17-game season, and at the moment, it's pretty hard to see Week 18 being meaningless for the Seahawks, such that they would be resting players. So Smith-Njigba has been a machine, and I say this with a little bit of trepidation. He is more than half of the Seahawks passing offense at this point, if we're being realistic. So if there's any fall off with him, you hope that it doesn't collapse the passing game and that they're able to replace any reduced Smith-Njigba targets or reduced JSN effectiveness with Torrey Horton or Cooper Kupp, or get the tight ends more involved. But Smith-Njigba is showing that this whole, this kind of making it like a denigrating remark that, he's just a slot receiver, blah, blah. Well, guess what? He can do both. He is a guy who can kill you on the slot and kill you on the outside. And he is winning one-on-one against some of the best corners in the league, like Derek Stingley Jr. And no, he's not somebody who is a 4-2 burner. He's not Xavier Worthy. He's not one of the absolute fastest guys in the league. But that's not every single top receiver who feasts like this is known to be this incredible burner. It is not always about straight line speed. It is impossible for it to be about straight line speed. What you're seeing with Smith-Njigba is what you're seeing in college. Tremendous footwork, incredible route running, ability to generate yards after the catch, and he's shown fantastic hands. And other than his first year, where keep in mind he had that wrist injury in preseason, his hands have been excellent, and he's able to also show tremendous body control on those throws to the sideline. I think what has been a little bit unexpected is how good a deep threat he has been, because he wasn't really that in college, especially when you have Olave and Wilson on your team. So maybe it was just a case of him being featured less often because they already had two other guys who were just as dangerous down the field as JSN was dangerous in the short and intermediate parts of the field. But he's been getting better. I mean, it is totally normal career progression for him to have 60-something catches in his rookie year where, yeah, it felt like he was being played too close to the line of scrimmage at times under Shane Waldron too. I know we want to beat up on Ryan Grubb, but JSN had a 100-catch season for over 1,000 yards. And Smith-Njigba was having his depth of target increase. This year, he is almost at 1,000 yards already. He could break that 1,000-yard mark this weekend. And he's on pace for 100-something catches and breaking his own receiving yards record, I guess, or shared with Tyler Lockett. And he's basically doing it all. He is showing he is a complete receiver. And yeah, I think that he can rewrite the Seahawks record books. I mean, he has made it a no doubter that he's going to have a long-term extension with Seattle. Like, there's no reason to move on from him anytime soon. And at this trajectory, and we haven't had to say this in forever, the Seahawks at the moment look like they have a Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame caliber receiver on their hands. And like a true Seahawk, not Jerry Rice at the end of his career, but like a, fully grown Seahawks Hall of Fame receiver. Haven't had that since Largent. And in fact, Largent's the only Hall of Fame receiver Seattle's ever put in. So yeah. I think that JSN is on that track. I don't think I'm being over the top whatsoever. He is that good and even better than I thought.
So Dan, you get the luxury of going last in this segment, and Mookie kind of started to direct my question that I've got for you on this. And by the time JSN's contract's up, so we got another year plus his 5th year option. Is it safe to say, based on what we've seen so far from the first kind of 3 seasons of JSN, or 2.5, if you want to count it that way, that JSN will probably be the most complete receiver Seattle has had in the last 20 years?
Oh, of all time. I really believe that. By the time he's done, the Seahawks records are going to be insurmountable. The thing that stands out to me the most about his game that I appreciate so much is so many of the players that we've seen in the past that are known as really good route runners are very exaggerated in their movements. I mean, they're very out loud in the way they run routes. Like I'm deking a guy inside and then I'm cutting outside. JSN's like this. Like he's just so nuanced and subtle about his body movements and what he does. And I actually think that makes it harder on these defensive backs, because sometimes it looks like he's not going to vary his route at all. He's just running a go, and then he'll just throw a little slight wrinkle in there. And then, Sam and he are just on the same page to get it done. It's really, really fun to see. One of my favorite things in all of sports, but especially football, because it's such a hard leap to make from college to the pros, is just watching guys blossom before our eyes and watching guys get better each and every year and each and every week. And it just seems like the sky's the limit. It was just a couple of months ago that we were all lamenting the fact that, all these during list season, all these top 10 receiver lists, top 10 fantasy football weapons, top, players that are 25 and under in certain position groups. And JSN just wasn't getting a lot of love yet. Well, now he just took a week off and he still leads the league in receiving yards by 100 yards. I mean, that's remarkable. He's starting to get the love. He's answering all the questions people had about him in the offseason. I think the sky's the limit. And what I will say this, breaking the record's going to be tough. Averaging 117 yards per game like he is, that's going to be tough to keep up with as we play better teams and we play in poor conditions as the season progresses. But can we just show a little bit of love to Michael Thomas? Because I am absolutely blown up. I don't think anyone's ever going to catch 149 balls again. And the fact that he did it when there were 16 games still in the season, was before they added that other game on. You look at the pace that JSN's on right now, he'd finished with 121 catches for 1,989 yards, which would be the record, and 10 touchdowns. Thomas caught 149 balls in 2019. Just a tip of the cap to him. That's just, it doesn't seem right.
Made his foot almost fall off, though.
Yeah, that's true. He did almost have his foot fall off.
He paid for it. Yeah.
And let's look again. What school did he come out of again? I'm trying to remember what school is that again.
Wide receiver
I wonder
wide receiver
if you ask Michael Thomas, like, if I could go back and make that an 80 catch year, but you'd still be playing and be a productive player today, would you trade it? Like, he paid the price for that year for sure.
He definitely did. And so obviously we've kind of figured out this passing offense is kind of the driving force of this offense currently. So guys, let's touch on this run game and Kubiak's offense, because we know what the whole premise of this offense was, or what we were kind of sold in the offseason was this was going to be a run attack offense. We're going to run outside zone. We're going to be, to Mookie's point, physical, and we're going to run it. And they've kind of lived up to that in the sense of we are running the ball at one of the highest rates in the NFL. Almost 50% of our offense is the run game, but we're not necessarily seeing the returns. So, Dan, I'll start with you on this. What has impressed you most about Kubiak's play calling so far, and what still frustrates you?
I think what's impressed me is, first of all, just the commitment to the scheme and not varying from it. But the bigger part of that, I think, is just the unpredictability of it. All the things that we were promised by him are similar things to what we were promised by Shane Waldron and Ryan Grubb, and everything's going to look the same, but it's going to be different. We're going to run the same play out of different formations, different plays out of the same formations. We didn't actually get to see that come to fruition, but with Kubiak, it's true. And I just love how just when you think he's abandoned a certain aspect of the offense, he'll go back to it. Like the Houston game, they started out first couple of drives of the game were almost exclusively under center. And then there was a period of time in the third quarter when momentum was starting to get a little shaky, that it seemed like they were in shotgun a little too often for my liking. And as soon as I thought that or made that observation, boom, they went back under center. He's really committed to it. And how that translates to the run game is, again, we've heard play callers talk the talk in the past, but they haven't really walked the walk like he has. And the way that he sticks with the running game, even when it's not working, is really impressive to me. And I think it's been a big key to their success.
So, Mookie, I'll go with you on the next one. What do the efficiency metrics tell us about this offense and why it's been so effective, especially in the passing game?
In the passing game, I mean, their explosive play rates in the passing game is off the charts. And a lot of that is Smith-Njigba, of course. But I think one of the benefits of having Kubiak's offense here and just what he brings schematically just through his tree, his father, Shanahan's, etc., is that, to me, the really good coordinators can scheme anybody open. Like, it doesn't mean on a play-by-play basis they're always going to be open. It's just there can be a specific play or a specific set of plays where even the fourth option on the team is able to get free. And we are seeing explosives from A.J. Barner. A.J. Barner hit a 61-yard catch and run, absolute dagger of a play against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then we've had a couple of explosives from Elijah Arroyo, including against Houston that set up a touchdown. We're starting to see some more explosives out of Cooper Kupp because that was kind of scarce the first few weeks of the season. Really, the only thing we haven't seen are explosives to the running backs because they're basically not running routes. I think their target share to running backs is dead last. And then Smith-Njigba has been JSN. And then Torrey Horton's had a few. He hasn't caught a pass in a couple of weeks, but I think that better chemistry with him and Darnold, we're going to start to see that. So I believe that the passing offense has truly been spectacular in terms of generating explosive plays. The one thing I do note is that the running game, the explosive plays have actually been there. I mean, Kenneth Walker already has as many explosive plays this year than he did all of last year. It's just that we're seeing too many of the negative runs. And that part has been an issue for several seasons now. But when you think about the offense in totality, there are some issues. Like they're 13th in EPA per play. They're 13th in points per drive. So they're not lighting the world on fire. Their DVOA is really good. In fact, it's great for the passing offense. They're second And you know who's first, as we all expected, Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts. Run game, different story. But they're able to, or at least Kubiak is able to pull levers to make the offense work when some other things that they intended to do haven't been working. So like the run game hasn't been consistently working, but they're still doing play action. Last year, I mean, basically run game wasn't working. They never married the play action to the run game. And I've stumbled upon another big point. It clearly looks like they are marrying the play action to the run game in a way that is miles more effective than Ryan Grubb ever did. And I don't want to keep beating up on Ryan Grubb because obviously Alabama's having a really strong year after their stumble. But this is just a fundamental difference between somebody with deep NFL experience at Klint Kubiak and somebody who is a great college offensive coordinator but doesn't understand or doesn't seem to understand yet the nuances of NFL scheming and everything. But yes, this offense is still a work in progress, but I think that they could be due for some breakouts after this bye week. And I think there will be some time off. Well, they've had the time off and we'll be ramping some things up and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. I don't want it to just, square peg and round hole it all the time and constantly be having negative runs and no gain runs on their outside zone plays. But I also don't want them to completely abandon it because they aren't good at it. It's like, if this is your identity, you're going to have to find a way to at least be better than last place, which is what they are right now. But I trust in Kubiak 95% of the time. There's a 5% where I'm going, what are you doing? But the 95% is the structure of the offense is sound, and it's helping the offensive line. It's helping Sam Darnold. It's helping pretty much everybody.
So, Brandon, I kind of particularly wanted to ask you this question because I know running backs and the conversation around the two running backs has definitely been something that a lot of us have had to talk about. So my question to you, Brandon, is does the Walker-Charbonnet split help the Seattle offense and what they're trying to accomplish, or does it really hurt their rhythm? And if you had to pick one to be the RB1 going forward, who would it be and why? That's going to get the majority of the carries.
I don't think it does hurt. I'll go with Walker on this. If I can take this into a little bit of a different direction, but still answering your question, kind of building a little bit off of where, Mookie was out with a couple points there. If I ask all of you guys just real quick in the chat, and not you guys now, but you three, if you were a team that's dealing with the most stacked boxes in the NFL, number one, I'm not talking top 5, top 10, I'm saying number one. And then you're also dealing with the top 5 amount of most of blitzes, and blitzes can be run blitzes. If you have anything short of what the Eagles offensive line's been in recent history, who is having success against that in the run game, conceptually speaking? And maybe I'm out of my pocket on this to say this, but I kind of think that that's a 99% fail rate across the board, unless you've got world beaters every which way but loose on that offensive line. And that's not what we have. Am I off on this, guys, where you stand, Dan?
I think it's a great point, and I keep waiting for that to change. I keep waiting for teams to go, okay, we're going to drop more into coverage. We don't really respect their running game and with that offensive line and the way that they're blocking it. But no one's done it yet. And I think it's remarkable to me. And so, yeah, against that Houston Texans team, which came in, I think they were a top 5, top 6 run defense in the league. They were only giving up 12 points to average 4 yards a carry between the two backs. Against that, I think that's, considering where we are on the offensive line, we know we don't have a lot of people movers there, at least not at center and right guard. Bradford should be a people mover. He can be. He is at times. He's not consistently enough. I kind of think that it is what it is, and that you have to just live with that. At some point, some team is going to try, hey, let's play more cover, and the Seahawks have to be ready to pounce on that opportunity to run the football.
And that's I just think that what you're seeing here is this drawn to an extreme, which counter is this and this. And the counter of that is, yes, stay committed to the run game, try, but also don't break their backs over it when you look and you see some weird looking stats to that side of it, because this stuff is so an extreme in the combination to the other side of that. And that as long as you can look at your quarterback play, for instance, and see them playing like the most efficient in the sport, as long as you can look at your outside wide receivers and get the job done, I'd even overlook past the tight ends and running backs on this, because what happens when you're going to deal with that top 5 blitz rate as well? You got to slide into max protection. So why aren't we getting more to running backs? Why aren't we getting more to tight ends? Well, they've got a pass block a lot of the time. So they're out not running routes, but that's also Kubiak being smart and anticipating that blitz that he's seeing at a high level to make sure he's got those guys neutralized so that his one-on-ones in that back end, a la the Steeler game against Jalen Ramsey, when you take the top off the defense with JSN to the front of the field, no safety help in the middle of the field there. Nobody was home. And that's you, but you were also able to block it up enough to deal with that blitz you were dealing with on the play. And so I think this is one where the second that, like Dan just said, the second that stuff starts to go, it's just that to and fro. They pull this back a little bit. You watch. This thing goes for 3 weeks where we average middle of the road or 20th in stack box rate and about that in blitzing. Oh, watch how suddenly both running backs are going to be very dynamic again. Watch how both running backs are going to find effectiveness.
So here's something I wanted to ask you guys kind of about this, because that I totally 100% agree with you. And as a coach myself, like, unless you have, to your point, Brandon, a all-star offensive line, like top of the line, that can handle those stacked boxes plus the tight ends, you're not going to run the ball at a successful rate. But to the point of like what Dan said about like waiting for that, for teams to finally kind of back out and get more into the coverage and that, do you think part of it is because Klint Kubiak is who he is and the tree he comes from, and teams know how successful this run game is, even though we're not having the success, but that's why they are not bailing out of the stacked boxes, because they're going to the point, Brandon, like you said, like, if we do pull back and we do start bailing, this offense has got such a dynamic and well-coached run game. We're going to have problems with it the minute we pull that lever of, hey, we're going to drop back. We're going to cover JSN more. We're going to stay in this too high look more instead of bringing that safety down. And we're going to get into those. Do you think part of it is Klint Kubiak and who he is by nature and who he's associated with?
Yeah, it says, like as Mookie and Dan have talked about with the commitment to the running game that we've seen here, the true commitment, it's those two things. Yes, it's the front side thing you talked about of reputation, where everybody knows a Kubiak offense is going to run the ball, and that's the first thing you need to take away. But I think the second part of it has been that it would be very easy when you're facing this many stack boxes and blitzes to go everything in a pass city. I was talking to a Raider fan today who said he was lamenting, and he's like, so we got the first 15 plays of the game, and he scripts up one run in the first 15 with no Brock Bowers and no Jacoby Myers. Make it make sense. And I'm like, Chip Kelly, spread concept. That's what you get. Those old like inclinations die hard. Just can't stop himself. And so it's very easy, I think, to slide into that. Oh well, we're getting these. What am I? I can't run into a brick wall, coach. What do you want me to do? I got to throw. But instead, he's staying with the running game into it. He's still going, yeah. Keep chipping away. They'll eventually, I get them. This out. Maybe I'm just looking on the bright side, but I go, he's thinking, yeah, we keep chipping away. I can go to the pass whenever I want because you guys are doing this crazy stuff. But the reputation is definitely a big part of this. That is, you come with that. They know you want to run. And I'm kind of surprised, to be honest with you. Maybe I wonder if you guys feel the same on how much they've gone, though, this extreme with it. I did not expect any team to come in and counter us. And maybe it's the condensed splits with this high of a stack box rate, because it's not like we've run the ball particularly well in recent seasons. So it is almost a bit on the back of reputationally, or how much you've just been committed by the numbers with your, 50-50-ish kind of approach to it.
It's almost the flip of last year, because last year Geno was getting blitzed at a high rate to start the season. And then as the weeks progressed, he got blitzed a lot less. And they were just it was a two-part thing. One, that O-line couldn't handle 4 people. Could barely handle 3. Honestly, would struggle with 2. And then the other part was Seattle just didn't have the scheme really to effectively counter 4-man rushes, and teams could play coverage comfortably because the concepts are pretty much junk. It wasn't like they lacked vertical options when DK was still on the team, and then JSN has proven himself to be a vertical option. This year, we are seeing them, not only they're facing a high stack box rate, they're facing a high stack box rate, whether they're running outside or inside. It basically doesn't matter. And then forget it when it doesn't even matter down in distance at this point. I'm kind of wondering if opposing coordinators aren't really respecting Sam Darnold and this passing game as much. Like they think this is like just some sort of hot streak, then it's going to, basically peter out. But they can do that at their own discretion, because the way that Darnold is playing, I mean, I'll gladly take them continuing to just stack the box, and then you're going to have JSN one-on-one against pretty much any corner in the league. I'll take that. Or he's going to slice up zone coverages, play action. All right, here comes the boot. We're going to move Darnold away, and here's this wide open tight end underneath, and he's going to get yards after catch. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the second half of the season goes as far as the stack box rates and what wrinkles they make as far as the adjustments in the run game. And then one other point with Charbonnet and Walker, I think they got to have to figure out how to use Charbonnet more effectively. more than Walker. Charbonnet on the outside that's not the way to go. He's barely, I think Greg Bell said it, he's not even averaging 2 a carry running into the outside, which is fullback territory. Whereas Walker has been more effective running outside, but he's also somebody who can eat inside. I think his most explosive run was running between right guard and right tackle, or between center and right guard against Houston. So, yeah, there's still a lot to do with this running game, but there's a big difference for defenses not respecting the run game because they know you're not good at running the ball, and not respecting the run game because we don't think you're going to even run the ball. And that was a big thing last year. Teams didn't bite on play action, and they didn't bite on all certain plays because they said, look at the run pass split. Look at the way that they're operating every week and how quickly that Ryan Grubb abandons the run. What does that mean? We are not going to respect your play action. We don't think you're going to run the ball, so forget play action. So this is a lot different. And why the play action still works for Seattle is that you don't have to run it well. And this has been a long debated thing. You don't necessarily have to be a great running team to be dangerous at play action. And we're kind of seeing it with the Seahawks right now.
And just to tie a bow on all of that and kind of bring it full circle, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how impressive it is that Kubiak is so determined to stick to the plan, regardless of game script, or he's not overthinking it. Because if we think back to week 1, and we were all just mystified at the play calling there, we had the great drive early that sort of fulfilled every promise that we were given in the offseason of what the offense was going to look like. And then he scrapped it all and went, a lot more shotgun the rest of the way. It felt like well, now that we have more data and our eyes have seen it more, I think he overthought week 1. He thought, this is what the Niners are going to do against us. They're going to stack the box because we've been talking about running it. So we're going to zig when they think we're going to zag, and we're going to try and throw it. Since then, Mike McDonald talked about it again today. They're finding out what they're good at, and it's what they used a lot of the self-scouting portion of the bye week for. And we're going to lean into that and then try to fix some of the stuff we're not very good at. I think that was a stark reminder week 1 that, hey, let's not overthink it. Let's not get too cute. Let's do what we do well, regardless of who we're playing, and it's working.
All right, guys, so let's move on to this segment tonight. Seattle's biggest surprises and disappointments so far. And so, Dan, I'll start with you. Which pleasant surprise gives you hope for the stretch run?
My biggest one is how much the offensive line has improved and how quickly. I had baked in, when I did my schedule preview, when the schedule first came out in May, I had them going 4-3 to this point, not 5-2. And a big part of that was I just thought it would take a little longer for it to come together. They're on pace to give up 27 sacks for the season right now. And just to compare that, like Sam got sacked 57 times in Minnesota last year. Geno got sacked 50 times here. I think he was 50 the last 3 years here, or close to it. That is a dramatic improvement, no matter how you slice it. And then, I mentioned earlier the rankings with the win rates. I didn't think it would come together this quickly, this well. And it's, again, I feel like I have to qualify this anytime I talk about how well the offensive line is doing. It's with a weak link and maybe 1.5 weak links. But I think that's let's put the positive spin on that, not the negative one. It's the scheme, it's how they call plays, it's Sam and how he's getting rid of the football, and then that would lead me to the next part of it. My other favorite surprise is, and it's not that big of a surprise. I think we expect good players, talented players, to get better every year, at least if they're given the opportunity to, and they're getting the right coaching. And I was just looking at this graphic that I saw earlier today. The biggest questions in the offseason about Sam were, how does he handle pressure? He wilts under pressure. We saw the Rams pressure, and we saw the Lions pressure plan in week 18 last year, right? And that's what led to a lot of the skepticism that he was going to be an improvement here over Geno Smith. He is, when looking at 2 key metrics, EPA per play when pressured, and then success rate when pressured. EPA per play when pressured, only 2 quarterbacks are playing better than he is in the NFL right now: Daniel Jones, Patrick Mahomes. Success rate when pressured, Mahomes is the only guy that's better than him, and it's by percentage points. Like, he's gotten better. And so the 2 of those things, put together, I think is really impressive. And then the other one, if I can just bring up my Google Doc that I ran off the page. What was the other part of the question? Disappointments. Think about big picture or individual ones. I didn't expect a whole lot out of Boye Mafe this year, but I expected more than 9 tackles through 7 games. You know, I know he keeps showing up in some of the pressure lists, but this is a guy that people wanted us to sign long-term before the season, a guy with all the athleticism you'd ever want out of that position in his 4th year now, playing for really good coaches in a really good scheme. And not once this year have we seen the guy just blow a play up. And as good as that pressure unit has been, imagine how much better it could be if that guy's could put his athletic ability together with being a football player.
Mookie, I'll ask you the next question here. Which sure thing from this offseason through preseason into the season has under-delivered? What thing did you think was going to be like, this is something we're going to be able to hang our hat on, or this player, and they just under-delivered so far?
Okay, this can be player or collective group.
Yeah.
I was going to say Mafe as well, but you know, the thing with Boye is, yeah, the pressure stats look good, but I do think that unless you're, you know, pressure to sack ratio with him has never been terribly consistent. He's always been a streaky player. I mean, he was start out red hot last year, and then he got injured, and then he had like 2 sacks the rest of the season after the last 9-10 games, and then he had that streak there. I think he might have tied or broken the franchise record for consecutive games with a sack in 2023. We thought, all right, this is a good year 2 leap. But, and I say this knowing Derek Hall doesn't have a sack on the season either, but I think when he comes back, you can tangibly see the difference between the way Derek Hall influences the game versus the way Boye Mafe influences the game. So Mafe has been a bit of a disappointment to me because he is also usually a good run defender, but the Seahawks run defense has been so great that, you know, Mafe's importance is not as pronounced as it was 2 years ago. But I tell you this, what has offset the disappointment of Boye Mafe not having a breakout year in your contract year is the resurrection of Uchenna Nwosu. Because I bet you if I interviewed any knowledgeable Seahawks fan on the street right now and told them at the bye week or asked them at the bye week, who is the team leader in sacks? I don't think many of them would have said Uchenna Nwosu. And I also don't think many of them would have predicted that at the start of the season, that he'd lead the team in sacks. And it's not an insignificant number. He's at 5 right now. He should have 5 with a safety. I don't care about that forward progress rule. That's a safety.
Yeah.
But it's been big because I think the fan base, or at least a select bunch of kind of, you know, annoying people online, have been getting on Uchenna for, oh, he's always injured and this and that. Well, the first few years of his career, dating back to when he was with the Chargers, he wasn't getting injured a lot. Injuries happen, and he just picked up a horrible set of injuries. I think a torn bicep, or was it torn pec? I think it was torn pec in 2023. Yep. And then 2024, Wyatt Teller, future Seahawk, probably not, but Wyatt Teller chop blocks him, and he sprains his MCL, and then he comes back, and then he hurts his quad. So he's gone through all that, gone through other surgeries this offseason because I think he had a shoulder issue too. And he has been fantastic once he got into the rhythm of the game after, you know, getting his legs back under him for the first few games of the season. So, yeah, the disappointment has been Mafe, but where there's been disappointment, I think for a lot of players individually, there has been an opportunity for somebody to impress. And that includes, like, my other answer would have been Tyrese Knight. Like, I don't know what his health situation is, and I'm not talking necessarily about his injury, but that other health medical sounding thing that they were talking about, he's just not been sharp this year. And for McDonald to go from splitting snaps between him and Drake Thomas to Drake Thomas, you're a guy for all the snaps, that's a big deal. And Drake Thomas, I'm not going to proclaim him to be like the next KJ Wright or anything, but he's been a net positive. So again, we've seen some guys underperform, but also some guys overperform to create that balancing part. It's a lot different if guys or key players are underperforming and nobody else is stepping up. That's a difference right there between 5-2 and 3-4, 2-5.
All right, Brandon, you're the last one to get to answer in this one. And so for me, it's going to be pretty simple. Who's your biggest surprise so far, and who's your biggest disappointment?
Yeah, the biggest, I think, disappointment. I mean, I'm gonna go a little on the back of Dan to a degree with this, but I want to kind of add an assembly. If we if we had one of, to me, Hall, Mafe, or Woolen, who was able to round themselves into a true difference maker this year, imagine what this defense would look like. And I think a lot of people are very a little bit more accommodating to Derek Hall than they are to Mafe. Understandable, maybe because of the fact that you're younger and that people are seeing things a little bit different than sometimes I'm seeing on tape. Because I think both of them are far too quiet for what I'm hoping they can become for second round picks. And so I find myself just there going, man, I really had more higher hopes that one of those, maybe not both, but one of these kind of three, something can really come forward with as far as consistency and impact and effect. But like Mookie mentioned, Uchenna's got the most sacks on this team. Uchenna wasn't healthy to start this season. He wasn't playing every game. That's kind of telling to me. DeMarcus Lawrence has been your second most effective pass rusher. That's kind of telling to me. So I'm a little bit disappointed those guys. I'm not out on them, but it's also why I'm a little bit more willing, unlike some Hawk fans right now, at the trade deadline, to be open to the edge. I don't think it's just taken care of. I think that we've got some solid guys, but I think what we need to be on the hunt for here is a little bit more of the difference-making component when it comes to this front four, especially when understanding that Mike Macdonald wants to, by nature, not blitz. We've spent a lot of this year at about 31st in league blitz rate this season, which means the front four's got to get it done, which means it's not just, well, it's just nice to have depth. And no, the guys have got to get the job done if that's how you're going to roll. It's been nice the past couple of weeks with the change, but if he's going to slide back into the stuff, the machinations from early on in the year, you need guys that can go out there and truly not just get pressures, which I'm starting to really like that pressure thing starting to fill in for actual productivity to me on certain players here. And it's kind of making my butt itch. As far as surprises go, I'm telling you, man, you got no sacks in your effective pass rusher. I'm like, how's that work? How's that work? But as far as surprises or really cool things, I think anybody told me at the start of the year that Jaxon Smith-Njigba was going to be playing 80% of his snaps on the outside and be on pace to light up Calvin Johnson's yardage record while you're in a Klint Kubiak offense. I think you might have made my brain roll out of my skull if I had heard somebody try to sell me on that one. That was not on the bingo card.
Mm-hmm. So I'll give you my biggest surprise this far, guys, this season, and that's been Josh Jobe. We are legitimately having the discussion that Josh Jobe is basically corner two, and if Witherspoon's back this Sunday versus the the Commanders, when I talked with Greg Brell and even Corbin Smith, there were from both of them, they're like, there's no guarantee when they go into any of their nickel looks that Reek Woolen's walking on the field as the third corner. It might be a situation where Nick Emanwari just stays in nickel and Spoon stays outside, and the only time you'll see Reek on there is if they go to a dime package where Emanwari slides in at weak side linebacker and then Spoon moves in nickel that you bring Reek on the field. But how often do they go to that? Like, there's a real conversation that Josh Jobe is your number two corner now outside of Witherspoon when he gets back. That probably is my biggest surprise. I didn't have that on my bingo card. Like, I was thinking, okay, Josh Jobe's going to be a good third corner. He'll rotate in when we go into nickel. He's going to be fine there. And he has played very, very well this season for us.
Yeah, are you guys sitting Woolen? Are you guys all on board with that, by the way?
No.
I think there's going to be a lot of mix and matching happening.
Yeah.
I think especially with the news today that Julian Love's going to be out, we may see the big question going in this game was going to be, how's he going to balance Devin and Emanwari in that slot? Because they're not just going to play Witherspoon on the outside full time. And so I thought that was one of the intriguing storylines. Well, now with Love out, there's been some hints from Mike Macdonald, and there's been some pointed questions at him the last couple of weeks about, maybe we see Nick Emanwari play a few deep safety snaps in order to get Devin into the slot. Because here's the thing, I still think for this team to get to where we want them to go this year, Reek Woolen needs to be on this roster. And I would put it this way, if you have one rep, and I know everyone's going to think back to the 49er game, okay? We know those were the two bad plays on that last drive. But if you have one rep against a good receiver in man coverage to win a game right now, would you rather Reek be on the guy or Josh Jobe? For me, it's Reek all day.
Yeah, the physical aspect of Woolen just being a tall corner with go gadget arms. I think about the Witherspoon touchdown that he gave up, or the Marvin Harrison Jr. touchdown that Witherspoon gave up against Arizona. Devin Witherspoon's an outstanding player. That was great coverage. Mm-hmm. Devin Witherspoon is not 6'4". Marvin Harrison Jr. pretty much is. So Woolen, same situation. If he had made the exact same body movements as Witherspoon, he's either ending up with a pick or a PBU. So the cornerback situation for Seattle gets a little dicier in terms of size if you move on from Woolen. Now, snap reallocation, which does not mean benching Woolen, it just means reducing his snaps and having so many. It's like the Joker. Where does he get all these toys? So that's how I feel McDonald views the secondary room when healthy. And unfortunately, the Julian Love news is a bummer. But that's how I see it with Woolen. Doesn't make sense to trade him unless you get a high-end cornerback. I mean, if you get a high-end corner or a good starting caliber corner in return, then it really isn't worth it to get him off the roster. I mean, just deal with if you want to let him walk in free agency, fine. And then just be careful about the 2027 comp pick if you're thinking so much about the comp pick when it comes to the following free agency. But before we move on, I just want to know if I could give a collective surprise for a group, the special teams. Because while Myers is kind of scaring me because he's sub 80% on the year with field goals, the coverage units have been great. The return game has been outstanding. And it sucks that Derek Young is having this injury, because Derek has really carved out a niche for himself as a kick returner. As I tweeted a couple of weeks ago, he was briefly leading the league in kick return yard average. Don't think that's happening now, but I mean, George Holani looks good. I'm curious to see who replaces Derek while he's out. But yeah, the special teams unit, Jay Harbaugh, you are off the hook for now because of the improvements of the special teams unit. We are so long gone from the Laviska Shenault, D. Williams, Smothers Brothers comedy hour of just total mishaps happening.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. The special teams unit definitely has been a pleasant surprise this season. But let's talk about our rest of our division here, guys, because only one team played this past weekend, but the division as a whole up to this midseason point. Brandon, I'll start with you. Do the Seahawks have the physicality to beat the Los Angeles Rams and take ownership of the division this year?
Yeah, I think that they have the goods. I think they absolutely do. I think that to the point of your question, and the heart of it to me is not really about, well, the run game's got to get going for us to get to, I don't know. Well, if we got, like to my earlier point, if we still face stack box the rest of the schedule, do I feel that way? I don't know if I do. I think that what I really have standing out here from my perspective on this is that you're a good team. Mookie talked about earning this record versus last year where you didn't feel like you earned this record. He's right. It's definitely one where you feel like you've gotten this one and you deserve it. With that said, this team over the past couple of years, when it's kind of had a true test, and I don't know if Jacksonville's a true test. I don't know if the Texans are a true test. I don't know if the Steelers are a real true test when everything's all said and done. What is this team going to look like up against a true test? And the Rams are that. And unfortunately, we might have to wait to get to that game before we actually get even somewhat of a close answer, because, the Niners, Buccaneers took you down at home. Those are 2 games. 2 games don't make a season. But to my point on this, I think you guys would agree, you just haven't stood up to those tests and shown, hey, I can do it. It's almost like if you can just show me you do it the one time and you're not eking something out, but we took it to that really quality team, top to bottom, that they've been in the playoffs, that we right there and we're ready to take that next step forward. I know it's kind of an odd thing, but that's that thing I'm looking for my final step.
So Dan, I'll go to you on this one. What must they do to overtake the Rams? Because I look at the 49ers right now, and I know people still want to include them in this conversation, but I think the 49ers slowly are going to find themselves falling out of this race a little bit. So for you, what must the Seahawks do to overtake the Rams? What's the key?
Got to defend the dig. I mean, that middle of the field that Stafford is so good at and better at than just about every other quarterback that's playing in this league. And, we were introduced to that. If there was ever any doubt that that's his favorite thing to do, it was 2 years ago on opening day at Lumen Field in Puka Nakua's debut. Like, they just killed us with that play. And that's where we've been vulnerable against them over the last couple of years, middle of the field where Stafford likes to live. And the first thought that I had when Emenwari made that great break on the ball to knock that ball away on Monday night against the Texans in his deep zone was, that's what's been missing. Like, that player in the middle of the field that can get those deep drops, but has the athleticism to break on a ball and make a play like that against the Rams. That's what's been missing. And I desperately hope that by the time we get there, that Devin and Emenwari are both healthy and that they've figured out how that that snap share is going to work. Would love to have Julian Love too. And I know there was some talk today about injured reserve is under consideration. I have to think a big part of that decision-making process for them will be if there's any shot that he can play week 11 against the Rams and be close to 100%, then let's hold off on injured reserve. We don't need the roster spot. That game is that important because just to piggyback off what the other couple of guys have said, like they got to beat the Rams. That's what they have to do to win this division. And it has to be, they have to at least split the next two games, the 2 games remaining against them. And it feels like week 11 is more important because if you don't get that game, even if you're 7-3 after that game, the narrative's going to be, yeah, but they still can't beat the Rams, can't beat McVay. And then you got to wait till week 16 to get another shot at that at home. I was talking to Stacey about it today. I mean, we're all optimistic here. I think the matchups look favorable. They have an opportunity to go into that game at 7-2. I think if they do that, it's going to be one of the most important, one of the biggest regular season games we've seen here in several years. That cannot be overstated how important that matchup will be.
Well, and to the point about this first matchup that we've got with the Rams, the second one is going to be on a short week coming off a game against the Indianapolis Colts. Well, that's not good.
They play the Lions, so they play the Lions Sunday too, and we're at least coming off a home game, so they have just as tough of a task. But yeah, to your point, for sure.
So, Mookie, last one for you here. What's Seattle's biggest actual advantage in the division right now in your mind?
In terms of what, the record or the overall
in terms
play?
of the team itself, in terms of record, whatever you want to go with it on this. It's basically, what do you think gives Seattle its biggest advantage over the Rams and over the 49ers? Is it the fact that they're getting healthier? Is it the fact, that they've got a 5-2 record right now and they're not kind of chasing anybody just quite yet?
Yeah, I think that they're getting healthier in key areas now. Not everywhere, because we know what's happened with Julian Love and the setback, and it kind of makes me really want to relitigate what happened with that Arizona game for both Spoon and Love to immediately get re-injured. But we'll leave that aside. That you're getting Witherspoon back, huge. You're getting Derek Hall back, also huge, because then you're going to keep rotating Hall and you're going to have Hall and Lawrence and Mafe and Cheney. So you're going to have your full complement of guys who are going to be on the outside, in addition to the fact that Big Cat, Byron Murphy, and Jaron Reed have been wrecking shop in the interior. So you got your defensive front all set, such that's not really going to be a lot of opportunities for guys like Brandon Peely, who have been able to contribute effectively. So the 49ers, the fact that they have probably the easiest schedule of everybody in this 3-team race, I think will offset a little bit all the injuries they're having. Like, you would expect the 49ers to beat Tennessee, for example, or even right now to beat the New York Giants, and even in their state probably beat Carolina. They do have some tougher games though. The Colts, I think the Bears are at least respectable, and the Browns defense is good enough to actually harm San Francisco's offense. It's just that the Browns can't score. So I think that this is still going to be a 3-team race deep into the season, but eventually the Niners will drop off by just enough. But the Rams, that is going to be something. It's going to be, to me, week 11, as Dan said, that will be the biggest game of the McDonald era, sure. And it'll be one of the biggest Seahawks-Rams games in years, because both teams are very, very good. And the Rams, I think, made a pretty smart move in trading for Roger McCreary, because as good as their defense has been, cornerback is a little bit of a question mark for them. And Emmanuel Forbes, being a 110-pound corner, really not going to work later on in the season, or really at any point in the season, against more physical receivers. So, yeah, I think that Seattle's health is going to be the big determining factor. And, of course, how can I forget? Robbie Oots is back. And I know that statistically, Oots is not, when Oots is in the game, the running game is not demonstrably better. But with a greater sample size and a greater way to use him, that running game could get going again, because Robbie Oots is an actual fullback and Brady Russell really is not. He's a tweener, essentially. He is sort of fullback and he's sort of tight end. Robbie Oots is just a big fullback. And I think it has hamstrung in a way what Kubiak wants to run in terms of the running game. But I can't wait for week 11. And I always use this stat, at least in the Pete Carroll era. Every time the Seahawks won the NFC West, they did it by clinching at home against the Rams. And they played the Rams in their home finale, week 16, Thursday night. So if Mike wants to continue a great tradition,
it's a good pull.
that would be amazing. It's just that we didn't think that the Colts game would be much tougher, potentially tougher than the Rams one. Not in a million years did I think that was going to happen.
One thing you mentioned too on the McCreary thing, us grabbing Darian Kendrick, because McCreary's going to come in there and play slot more than anything else. So us taking Kendrick forces the Rams down the line to have to make a trade for McCreary. Schneider with some 4D level chess stuff, boys.
Yeah, he's kind of the forgotten man, Kendrick, because he made a couple of nice plays. But now that guys are back in the cornerback position, unless they trade Reek, like Kendrick is just chilling, but he's been serviceable depth as a slot guy as opposed to outside, where he's been more of a liability at least when he was with the Rams. So the cornerback depth is, I can relax a little bit more now that Spoon is back.
All right, gentlemen. Well, let's move on to a topic I think most people want to hear our opinions on, and that's this trade deadline that's looming. It's coming up. You know, we've heard some interesting things. Jordan Schultz put out a report today that Seattle is in the market or looking to acquire an offensive lineman to add to this group. For you guys, and I'll start with Mookie, with you on this one. What do you think is the number one position group of priority for Seattle if they are to add somebody at the trade deadline?
I'm torn here because if they find a good enough edge, I wouldn't hesitate to trade Mafe at this point. So I think that they need a standout edge, kind of like the Dunlap trade a few years ago, where Dunlap made the difference from having 0 pass rush to having a pass rush. So this is not the same situation, but if they can have a Dunlap-esque trade, I think that would be great. There's a part of me that wants Seattle to have another receiver. So Rashid Shaheed type receiver. He didn't help my cause on Sunday by fumbling twice. It's just that they blew the play dead for one of them. But I think they could use another receiver, especially with Horton not being as involved in the offense lately. But here's one thing to consider about adding any wide receiver right now. Who are you getting rid of? Now, if Derek could go on IR, so that might resolve itself. But if Derek doesn't go on IR, or he eventually comes back in 4 weeks, who are you getting rid of? Because they're probably not going to roster 6 receivers. I don't think that Jake Bobo is an absolute lock to stay on this roster throughout the rest of the season, because he is playing a lot less throughout this season compared to seasons past. Part of that is because they're not running 11 personnel nearly as much. But the other part of it is he's kind of redundant. Like, okay, he's an above the rim guy. He's a jump ball guy. Well, Cooper Kupp can high point passes, and Smith-Njigba showing he can win contested catches too. So we know Bobo's limitations just athletically as a receiver. So, okay, what about him as a blocker? Well, it doesn't matter as much if they're going to be having an extra tight end in there or Robbie Utes in the game. So it kind of reduces Bobo's value to the team, and he's not playing on special teams as much. So if they're going to add a receiver, I actually think that Bobo could be in jeopardy. But ultimately, and this is going to be the most long shot, right guard. I'm trying to be nice. I've been trying to be patient with Anthony Bradford. Like, hey, maybe he and we were all at camp thinking, man, he looks better. And in that preseason game against the Chiefs, he looks better. Well, then the actual games happened, and it's not like he's losing every snap, but just like quarterbacks have quote turnover-worthy plays, Anthony Bradford is having like the equivalent of turnover-worthy plays. That Texans game was so bad, and I mean, he was doing a great job blocking Jalen Sundell, just not doing a great enough job blocking Texans players. So it feels like if it's not working with this coaching staff, they're going to have to think more long-term about who should be the starting right guard. But again, the other aspect of do you want to trade for a right guard is, are you trading Bradford? Are you cutting him? What are you doing with Christian Haynes, who's now back or coming back from injured reserve pretty soon and was a full participant today? So I would, what's his name? Greg Bell and Brady Henderson, they've all been talking about Seattle expected to be active in the market. So if a trade happens, I don't think it'll be a splash trade. I think it'll be a lower level trade, but with a familiar player. But if they stand pat because they don't like the moves, or they don't like what they have to give up in return, or they don't like what they could get in return, for example, if they shop Reek, then I'm not going to be incredibly shocked or disappointed. But I do feel like if they believe that they need that one extra piece to take them over the top and really be a true Super Bowl contender, Schneider just had his contract extended. I don't think his job's in jeopardy at this point, and not anytime soon, and not with the offseason he's had. He might be willing to just take that swing. or even hit a double instead of necessarily going for swinging for a home run. So yeah, ultimately to answer the question, I think that I would like to have just better play at guard, right guard specifically.
Brandon, what for you would be the capital you'd be willing to give up for a average to above average starting right guard in a trade? Like, what are you willing to give up to get, say, a Wyatt Teller or Joel Benito out of Cleveland? One of those guys. What are you willing to give up if you're the GM?
Those guys are day 3 picks to me. I think that they're getting a little too long in the tooth, especially in the case of Batonio. They're not going to be long-term answers there for you. On top of athletically, do they fit at this age and where they're at right now to the system? I would love to go make those moves. I don't know if I'm going to break, which day 2 to me is kind of breaking the bank to go make those moves. So I think that I wouldn't do it. Now, if we're talking about maybe Cesar Ruiz, though he's having a down year, the familiarity with Kubiak, would I be willing to maybe go day 2 there to like a 3rd round, and maybe it could even be talked into a 2nd rounder if it's got to be a competition between other teams and that's what makes it happen? Yeah, I think I probably would be willing to do that at this point. Same for Jackson Powers-Johnson. Maybe you can come back to the Raiders and say, look, you're not actually giving up now that 2nd round pick and getting less back in return. We'll give you tit for tat. We'll give you the 2nd round pick. We're getting a guy now that both now we know can play some guard, at least functional NFL level, but then your long-term answer is center as well. So if there's those type of aggressive moves to make, you better believe I'm willing to go and make them at that point. But I'm still on board too with being willing to go get the different, if a Crosby guy's on the market and you're able to go get that. We talked about Max Crosby, the collective as us in, or not, Micah Parsons, the collective as us in the, as at the start of this season, and how we'd be willing to do that. And I think you're seeing that Green Bay Packer defense, if they didn't have him supplying the pass rush like he is for them off, and look at what's done for Rashawn Gary and giving him another level of productivity to him on the other side, because he ain't getting as many double teams. I think there's like a bit of a ripple effect that you could do to having that if the Raiders were willing to do it. And I'd go pretty hard for that. I know that wasn't your question, but that remains one that I just do wonder if the Raiders are going to come to their senses on this one and realize maybe we should get the most value for this now. Maybe we shouldn't risk maybe injury down the road on this guy, because we could try to play this cute and be like, oh, we'll get it the same thing we'll get in the offseason. And then, ACL happens, or something bad happens, and now you're getting almost nothing. Do you want to play that game, Raiders, as you desperately need assets for the future? I don't know.
All right, Dan, final question goes to you in this, and it's kind of an interesting one. Do you think, and this is kind of, you're the GM, are you willing to make a trade for the sake of making a trade to get, a potential extra piece in here to really push that team for January, even though it could disrupt this team's chemistry? Because this team seems collectively very together, and maybe trading out a Boy Mafe or a Reek Woolen throws off the chemistry that's currently in this locker room by bringing in a guy that hasn't been here throughout all the stuff they've gone through. Do you think that's a possibility or something that you'd worried about if you were the GM of the Seattle Seahawks?
Not necessarily, because the flip side of that coin is sometimes you make a move like that and it puts people on notice, right? Gives them a little bit of an edge, keeps them from getting complacent. Like, oh, hey, that guy was playing pretty well and he just got moved out. Like, this shit is serious right now. We need to go. And I think where I look at this team relative to the trade deadline now, with just 6 days to go, is they're in a great position because they don't have to make a move. They don't have to. There isn't an obvious spot on this roster that's crying out for an upgrade, except for right guard, but those guys just don't grow on trees. It's very, very hard to find interior offensive linemen who can immediately upgrade you without giving up a lot, because teams aren't willing to move them. There's a lack of good interior offensive linemen all around the league. And so when you have one, I've had fans in the last week or so be like, try to get Skoronski out of the Titans. They're rebuilding. Well, if they're rebuilding around a young quarterback, you're not going to trade your first round guard from a couple of years ago. You're just not going to do that. Maybe a guy like Ruiz makes sense because you could plug him in there. He played in this system a year ago, right? And then Mookie makes a great point. If they do trade for a right guard that starts, Bradford can't be on this roster because he has no versatility, and that's what they really value. You look at who they've rostered this year, and even guys like Josh Jones and Bryce Campbell and Mason Richmond, they've all been cross-trained. They can play just about every position up and down the line. Anthony Bradford can only play right guard. So if he's not starting, he's not on this roster. Maybe in a situation like with New Orleans, maybe you include him in the deal because he's got another year left on his rookie contract and It's a 4th round deal, so it's not that expensive, and they're looking to shed salary. Just a little side note there. But I think other than that, unless you can find that guy or a unicorn comes along, because, to your guys' points, John's going to be on the phone with John Spytek in Vegas up until the second that the trade deadline elapses. Like, no matter how many times he tells him no, he's going to keep checking until the very end. So if something like that comes along, you empty the woodshed and you pay whatever you have to pay to get that. But I think more likely what we're going to see, if it's not an offensive line, is just a rotational piece. I've been saying all year long, I'm really worried about the depth on the interior of the defensive line. Those guys are playing too many snaps. And as the season goes along, that's going to be concerning. The depth there isn't as good as people think it is. If you lose a Jaron Reed or a Leonard Williams or a Byron Murphy for any length of time, you feel good about Brandon Peely and Mike Morris playing in there, right? Because I don't think we're going to see Riley Mills this year. And even if we do, how much can you count on from a rookie? That's a concern to me. And so I think what I feel like is going to happen most likely between now and the 4th is something like we saw last year with a guy like Roy Robertson Harris, where it might be a player that we're not even thinking about. That would just be a really nice complementary piece to plug in and kind of share the snap load.
All right, last question for all of you, and I'll go around starting Mookie to Brandon to Dan. Is this the season Seattle should, at this trade deadline, actually go all in, or are they still a year away from going all in?
If we're defining all in as, make the Super Bowl run now because you don't think you'll get a better shot, I don't think they should. They have too young a core, and I would include the quarterback in the situation to really think that way. They've got a very bright future set for them at the moment. And that was the thing with my gripe with the end of the Carroll era and really the first year of the McDonald era, which really just reflects more on Carroll and Schneider, is that they lack the quote unquote blue chip players. They lack players across multiple positions who were top 5, maybe top 10 at their respective position. So like now they have Byron Murphy playing like a top 10 defensive tackle. Leonard Williams is playing like a defensive player of the year candidate. Jaxon Smith-Njigba is playing like an offensive player of the year candidate. And maybe he's already in that conversation for like top 3 wide receiver in the league. And then you've got Charles Cross looking like, the way he's playing, maybe on the outer edge of a top 10 tackle, but you don't win in this league without having guys who are top 5 or top 10 at multiple positions. And the Seahawks just really lack that for too long. They have that now. And you know what? Sam Darnold right now playing like a top 10 quarterback. So when you have guys in key positions who are young, for the most part, cost controlled, who are playing at this level, then I don't think you necessarily have to dig too much into the future to try and win absolutely right now. The Darnold's performance, I think, has made things a little bit easier for them as far as thinking long-term, because if he wasn't playing well and they were middling and 3-4 or something like that, or 4-3 and not looking good, then you'd have to be thinking a bit like, is Darnold the guy entering 2026? And do we have to maybe kind of tweak some things a little bit more, especially with the Jalen Milroe timeline? Darnold's playing at this rate, playing so well that I'm not really concerned about Jalen Milroe's long-term development, because as we'll get to a little later on, Darnold could end up being that long-term option. So I don't think there's a reason to go all in this year. And all in would kind of mean like giving up a first-round pick or giving up a high-caliber player. And I don't think it would be wise to do that.
Brandon, you're up next.
Yeah, I'm certainly a person here that doesn't have a strong opinion that the team has to do this or has to do that, and it's so clear what they should be doing at this point. I think if they decided to not do anything, I would not lament it or pull my hair at it and say, this is the time to strike. You should have jumped in. I will also say that you can sometimes, split the baby here a little bit on this one, where you can go all in on a move that both has the good for now and the good for later. The team's going to have to make a decision with the edge, for instance, here in the upcoming future. Maffe's a free agent. Hull's got one more year of club control. DeMarcus Lawrence, as good as he's playing, is probably not long for the NFL world. And Uchenna has got one more year after this. So there's a little bit of we've got to deal with in the future of this some point. What we have right now just ain't going to be like, this forever. So if it comes to a position you can address to both get immediate returns, jump forward now, and yes, sacrifice some of that draft capital for the future to do so. When I've looked through some of the NFL seasons, when I go back to like the Rams winning theirs, remember that trade they made? You guys remember that? The second and the third rounder for Von Miller? That team was good. That team could sit there and say, we don't have to do this. We don't have to go this far. And we've already, Odell's been at it. but they did it. They went over the top. And I like the concept of not going up to the line, but taking it past the line a bit. And in this case, taking advantage of a market opportunity, a Raider team giving up a player that they normally wouldn't if they didn't have to then go and get all these assets because the team is in such disarray. They're not driving Max out the building because they don't want to keep the guy or because he doesn't the full meal deal. You're able to take advantage of a bit of a situation on this rather than it being you desperate to try to just, bundle as many picks and throw them away as fast as you possibly can.
All right, Dan, you're the final one to this question. What is your opinion?
Yeah, I don't know how much I can add to that insight other than, what is all in, right? If it's Max Crosby or Myles Garrett, then yeah, you do that. But those guys aren't available. They're just not going to be moved in the next 6 days. It's not going to happen. And so, what I do push back against, and I talked to some viewers about this earlier today, is making a move just for the sake of making a move. I've gotten that a lot over the last couple of weeks, and especially in the last 24 hours. The Rams and 49ers have made their moves. We have to answer that. No, you don't. All that matters is your roster and the team that you put on the field right now and how that stacks up. Roger McCreary doesn't move the needle for me. He's a nice player, but if he was that good, he wouldn't have been dealt for a team that needs good young players on their roster as much as anyone. I don't know that I liked Keon White a lot in the draft process a couple of years ago. Seahawks, we were looking for edges in that draft class, and he was a guy that was mocked a lot to Seattle, but I don't know that he's a needle mover either. It's a shrewd move for them. I liked it. You don't have to answer that just because they did, we do. I like our team, and I think they like our team. And if there's a move out there they think will make them better, and the little smirk that Mike McDonald gave yesterday when he was asked about it, about how we're always kind of in it, like makes you think maybe something is brewing. But you don't have to make a move just for the sake of doing it. If you think it can improve the team right now, and as Brandon said, in a perfect world, even moving forward longer term, then you do it. I just don't know how many of those trades are out there to be had.
So we'll get to our midterm report cards here, guys, and kind of get your grades on the offense, defense, and special teams. But I just want to say we've been at this for about 90 minutes now. We've got over 1,000 people watching, so appreciate everybody that's in the chat and everything like that. So again, if you haven't already and you're unsubscribed to any of the channels here, subscribe up to the Hawk Side, to Dan Viens at Seahawks Forever, and to Brandon Cain at the Hawk Nest. Head over there, like these videos, subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. And helps us out with our algorithms and such. So appreciate you guys over there. And if you haven't, also check out Field Gulls, where Mookie Alexander is the managing editor there. There's always great articles up there. So just wanted to kind of get that out of the way. And guys, let's talk about our midterm report cards for the Seattle Seahawks. I'll start with you, Dan. Give me your grade: offense, defense, special teams, and coaching.
I'll go backwards because, we don't need to spend too much time talking about special teams, but Mookie gave him a shout out earlier. They're an A, right? Everybody wanted Jay Harbaugh fired this preseason, but he's been outstanding. They've been outstanding. We've seen some impactful plays, blocking kicks. We saw the touchdown return from Torrey Horton, but the consistency with which they're getting advantageous field position off of kickoff returns is a real underrated part to this too. It was a huge part of the Tampa Bay game, and we even saw it at times on Monday night. They've been great, and coaches talk about special teams all the time, and Pete used to talk about it as much as anyone. But it's not often that you see them actually contribute to winning football games as much as we have through the first 7 games. So kudos to those guys. And then offense and defense gave them both a B+. On offense, I touched on it earlier, but how quickly Klint Kubiak and John Benton and that staff were able to put this all together with 6 new starters this offseason, including the quarterback, and become at times the driver of this team and the most consistent part of this team, has given me more hope that they can truly contend than I've had in years, because to beat good teams, you have to be able to move the football. You have to be able to score points when things aren't always pretty, and they've shown that they can do that. And that's it's really impressive. Obviously the thing that keeps it from being an A- maybe is the lack of consistency in the run game. Want to see that get going a little bit more. And would like to see some of the secondary passing options involved a little bit more. That's a tricky one because the volume just isn't there. And then on defense, the B plus, again, the thing that keeping him from an A minus or better is probably just the Tampa Bay game. Like, love how they responded to that, but never would have seen them just getting run like that with absolutely zero pressure against an offensive line that was playing a couple of new starters on the right side because of injuries. That was just looking back on that still. The more time that gets in the rearview mirror, I feel like I'm a little more disappointed at that game than week one. Like week one was kind of more understandable for me, and I could accept it a little bit more, as frustrating as it was. But to see that defense just get run that day, even missing some guys, just seems so out of character. It was a real bummer. Without that, they have that win. We're 6-1 with a win over another NFC leader. It's a whole different ball game, regardless of the loss to the 49ers. So B plus, both sides of the ball, A for special teams. And
what's your coaching grade, Dan?
For coach, oh gosh.
Do you want me to come back?
No. I like going off the cuff. I'll go A minus. And the minus is, again, just because of what I talked about. Like, the total egg that they laid against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was unexpected, disappointing, and kind of looms large when it comes to potential seeding later on if we end up being matched up against Tampa Bay with similar records. But overall, you got to give Mike Macdonald credit for the success on offense too, for making the hiring choices that he did in the offseason, for understanding with just acute clarity the identity he wanted on offense, taking the time. I know it frustrated all of us at the time how long that search took and how many twists and turns it kind of took, but he knew what he wanted. He went out and got it. And then those two have worked so well together. You have to give him credit for that. So I'll go A minus overall for coaching.
Okay. Brandon, what are your grades?
I'd go A for special teams. I know that Myers is the only blemish, but even in Myers' case, he's got a game winner on the books. He still has shown off the big leg. He's part of what helped you in that Steelers game with the way he's able to, part we haven't talked about, that freaking pooch thing that he does where he get that roll. He's got a nasty spin on the thing like a knuckleball. So I would give them an A. Dixon's absolutely putting out of his mind, and the whole unit all the way around it, from the return with Drake Young to how you've defended it. It's been phenomenal. So A there all the way. You look at, to me, this offense and defense, and to me, this is pretty simple. You've got a top 6 scoring offense right now. Top 6. That to me is an A minus, at least grade, just on that alone, with where you were coming from and what we had walking into this year that needed to be done for this offense to find and even call it consistency. And much less when you're top 6, you're getting pretty close to one of the dominant offenses in the league, I'd say. If you were to take out that touchdown last week from the Texans off this defense's back, which, by the way, it does count in the points per game, you have a top 5 point per game defense with a lot of injuries across the board here throughout this season, here and there and everywhere a little bit. Not decimated like the Niners, mind you, but there's been a few. So again, A minus on that as well, as I've got 2 units right around the top 5 in this sport. Hard for me not to look at that as the bottom dollar. I'm looking at this kind of simply. Is there a lot of room for growth there? And the Buccaneers game, to Dan's point, drives me freaking crazy. The Niners game drove me crazy because you let them drive up and down the field at times and just didn't. That when Mike Macdonald's defense is at its worst, a little bit almost the Carroll-like vibes, where it just gets a little bit of a lack of aggression to it, and you can feel it. And that's where I'd have a bit of my issues there. But I think that those units have performed really well, and I'd be pretty hard lined on those scores. With coaching, again, I don't mean to be lame with this, but I think I'd be to A minus. The minus would maybe only go to Mike, just being that, Mike, be aggressive, get after it here. Don't let him off the hook. Don't Dennis Green this situation. Get in there and take to him, know who you are and be who you are on a field, and do it every week. You can mix it up, but don't draw off the aggression. Put the pedal down on the floor and let's freaking go. And with Kubiak having a high degree of difficulty, a lot to fix, running game, pass blocking, who's going to be your outside receiver? The mix between Cooper Kupp and JSN, who's wide receiver, who's running back 1, who's running back 2. He's taken this a bit of a messy situation and brought you that top 6 offense. To me, that's an A minus.
All right, Mookie. Your last one up here. What are your grades for the Seattle Seahawks at the midterm point?
Coaching, I'm leaning towards a B. So like a B plus, which is higher than a B, right? So we're going B plus, just a little bit short of an A minus. And the demerits would be the inconsistent 4th down decision making by Mike Macdonald. For example, I did not like them punting on 4th and 1 in the Houston game in the 4th quarter when they could have gone up 3 possessions. It's like, I know the defense was dominating, but just push AJ Barner for a yard, keep the drive going. You get a field goal, the game's probably done. And then Klint Kubiak, I said earlier, 95% of the time I think Kubiak is cool. The 5% is when he just randomly decides, Cooper Kupp, you get to be quarterback for a day. Or and then maybe this is a bit McDonald influence, so in which case it would fall on both of them. I have not liked the 2-minute drill decisions over the last 2 games. I did not like the way they handled the 2-minute drill against Jacksonville, even though it ended in points. And I really disliked the Houston 2-minute drill because not only did it lead to points for Houston, but they essentially played for a field goal from midfield with all 3 timeouts and burned so much clock for no particularly good reason. So I'm not too thrilled with that, where they kind of put the handbrake on for I think they're overly cautious at times, and against better teams that can cost you. And frankly, it might have cost them in week 1 by not going for it on 4th and 1 in that 49ers game on their last scoring possession, where if you trust your offense to get a yard, you can run more time off the clock, maybe even get a touchdown instead of a field goal. But still, the team looks very well coached in terms of not having any like sloppy execution errors on a regular basis, not having umpteen coverage busts, even with backups in there. So I think the coaching has been very, very good. Defense, I think, is an A-. So the thing prevents it from being A+ would be 2 things. 1, 3 times that they've had fourth quarter closeout opportunities and given up touchdowns against Arizona, against San Francisco, and against Tampa Bay. So they've had opportunities and haven't closed the show, but they did close it out against Jacksonville, which I thought was a significant thing. And even with the offense repeatedly turning it over in the Houston game, they didn't really let Houston get back into it. And by the time that Houston got their touchdown on offense, Houston never saw the ball on offense again. So I think the defense, especially given that has been by far the more injured side of the ball, has been excellent. Of course, the Buccaneers game was terrible, but they responded so excellently out of that. There's very few things that you can fault for the defense, and we're getting such great productivity across the defensive line, particularly on the interior with Murphy and Big Cat, the way they're playing. Ernest Jones is playing at a fantastic level. And the secondary, which has been iffy at times, I think the secondary has done well. And I have to also shout out Ty Okada as somebody who I thought was just a preseason warrior. And now I'm thinking, could he essentially replace Kobe Bryant if Kobe walks in free agency? That's how I view Okada right now. So offensively, I'm going with a B, a hard B. So the running game's got to be better. And the passing game, I think, needs to not be so heavily reliant on Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I got to see a little bit more from the non-JSN offense, and even a little bit more from how they operate in pure drop back, true pass set situations. And one other thing with the offense, they've got to cut the turnovers out. So this has been my gripe with McDonald. They have turned it over at least 2 times in over half the games he's coached. Now, there are a couple of instances where the defense actually turned it over, like in the Arizona game. But part of the reason why Seattle struggled at home so much for the last few years, but if I just isolate to the McDonald era, they are dead last in turnover differential at home since McDonald became coach. They're minus 15. Not generating enough takeaways, turning it over way too much. And these are preventable takeaways and some turnovers in some instances, like the Cooper Kupp trick play, needless, or having Darnold throw an aggressive pass over the middle of the field with like 6 minutes left. No need to do that. So that's got to be cleaned up. But otherwise, I think that this has been, what grades did I give? A B, a B+, and special teams is an A, as I pretty much kind of alluded to earlier. So averaging that all out, I think we're looking at an A- team, and it's been an A- start.
Well, you guys have made my life super easy, because unless I'm going to give everybody Fs, you've basically covered roughly where I'm feeling on all of this. So I'm not even going to bother with this answering this question, because mine's kind of in there with amongst you guys. Last topic for the night, guys, before we get to some Q&As, because we have a whole bunch of them stacked up and a lot of super chats as well, which we'll get to. Last thing is the final stretch. Can the Seahawks make a run? And so, Brandon, I'll ask you this. What's your predicted final record and playoff seed for the Seattle Seahawks?
And I started out with 11 wins at the start of the year for my outlook of this team. I still find myself at 11 wins. But much like I said at the start of the year as well, I could see it sliding 1 win either way, 2 wins either way. And I'm not meaning to take that middle ground, but it's part of like what we talked about earlier on your previous question about what I need to see for them to be a contender. And they haven't done it yet, which is beat a true team, not beat a team that's, down on their luck, injured across the board, middle of the road, slightly better than middle of the road. but an actually legitimate team. Take them on head to head, be able to stand toe to toe, and then take them down. And until I see that, I can't speak to any confidence as to whether or not they're ready to get to that point. I think they're on the road. They'll get there eventually. I just don't know how soon it quite will be. It's hard to quite get the confidence level on that until I see it.
All right, Dan, and my question for you is, do you believe this team can win a playoff game on the road?
I believe this team can represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. I think the pieces are there. I think they're getting better with each and every week. There's reasons to believe that they'll continue to get better. Getting some pieces back on defense doesn't hurt. And as long as you have a defense every week that goes out and has the ability to shut down good offenses and good quarterbacks, you have a chance to win. And this offense has then shown to be even better than one that has to rely on the defense. They can go out and win games on their own too. And I'll give you one other little nugget. And Mookie touched on the takeaway margin, or was it Brandon? Sorry, I'd like to give credit where credit's due. This is kind of a remarkable stat, right? But if you just look at this year alone and how good this team has been and how they're pressuring the quarterback, and they're third in the league with 8 interceptions, that usually means you're a team that takes the ball away at a pretty high rate. They are the only team in the entire National Football League that not only hasn't recovered a fumble, they haven't even forced one yet. As much as this team gang tackles and rallies to the football and plays with violence and plays hard and plays together and pressures a quarterback, those are going to come. Like that, the regression to the mean is going to happen. The pendulum is going to swing back the other direction at some point. And I think this defense has an opportunity to take the ball away more in the second half than they did in the first. And then to your guys' point earlier too, I think we'll see this offense take care of the football better as well. And so, yeah, I guess by very nature of my overarching answer there, that I think this team is capable of going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, they can win a playoff game on the road.
All right, Mookie, and final question for you. Which of the upcoming matchups over the back half of the schedule, outside of the 2 Rams games, do you think poses the toughest challenge for the Seattle Seahawks?
The Colts, for obvious reasons, because that is a supremely balanced offense. And Daniel Jones obviously has experience winning in Seattle as recently as last year with a much worse team. But yeah, that's going to be a serious test for this run defense. This run defense is on pace to really be the best in Seahawks history. I mean, they have not allowed a running back to rush for longer than 15 yards this season. Not one carry. So that's been extremely impressive. Their explosive run rate allowed is elite. But Jonathan Taylor can bust up any defense. He's just that good. And this Colts offensive line, incidentally, not exactly missing Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, are they?
Right.
Because that I'm going off on a tangent. The Minnesota Vikings might have had the worst offseason of any team because of who they lost, and then who they signed, all of the money that they spent in free agency. And I don't see a playoff team in them right now. But anyway, I think the Colts game will be tough. And this might sound a little surprising. If the Falcons could just pick up their offense any point the second half of the season, that could be a tricky road game. Because Atlanta's defense, when I guess their linebackers are healthy, Atlanta's defense is improved from years past, and that they actually have a pass rush worth talking about. So Atlanta's, when Penix is healthy again, when they get some of their guys back like Drake London, you also got to deal with Bijan Robinson. So that could be one of those games where, yeah, it was an easy win last year, but this year it could be a tougher one. But that's pretty much what I see. I predicted 11-6, and I predicted a 5-2 record at the bye. But I see this as a potential 12-5 team now. I can bump them up by win. So I'm not quite at your 13-4 yet. But I can see them now as a potential 12-win team. Otherwise, yeah, the rest of the season, the Washington game, while not easy, I think is more favorable. And McLaurin is out again. And Arizona, of course, is always going to be a tough game because they might be 2-5, but they've got 5 losses all by less than 4 points. But Tennessee should be a simple game. Carolina, I think, is just, they're not terrible, but they're not very good. And then San Francisco, who knows who they have left by week 18. They might have to bring back Tim Rattay and Garrison Hurst and J.J. Stokes for week 18. But yeah, those Rams games and the Colts game, I think, are going to be the real tough ones.
Yeah, I'm still sticking on my 13-4 island here with John McGrath. I know Dan took his life raft and kind of is floating out in between, I think, somewhere now between 12-5 and 13-4 after I brought him onto the island there just at the beginning of the year. But Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see how this team fares down the back half now of this season, and this game against Washington. Like, I'll say this, it's retro game again. The Seahawks are wearing the retro jersey. The Seahawks do not have a great record in those jerseys, guys. They've only beat the Cleveland Browns and Denver Broncos. Every other time they've worn those jerseys, they've lost, and it hasn't, been something that's great. So I think they've worn them 5 times, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, they've won 2 and lost 3 in them. So hopefully that changes and they can balance it out this coming Sunday night. But we've had a lot of questions and comments, guys, throughout the night here. I've tried to keep up with as many of them as I can. So we're going to get into our 12s Q&A blitz here. And let's see what we got starting this off here. And we'll go up to the top. First, we got a new member that has now come into this, and that is Idis the Gamer. Idis the Gamer. So there's a new YouTube member there. We got Fabs in there. Seahawks Mafia dudes are here. We got a request, guys, for the next show that we're all supposed to look a certain way, and I'm going to find that.
We should have done. I mean, it's Halloween.
We should have done it. You're 100% right, Dan. We should have completely done it. John McGrath, what's up, Mookie? He goes, you guys need to do one Syndicate show wearing the all black gangster gear. So,
well, I have to watch it because our head coach in Portland just got arrested for illegal poker gambling. So
look out! Yeah.
I don't want the feds knocking at my door right now.
So that's
guilt
one
by
of them,
affiliation.
I mean, Bryce and I are wearing black.
So, we theoretically are, like, we're kind of there. Like, me and Dan were on the same wavelength with that completely. So we got another one here from the AHG. B looks like Tony Hinchcliffe with that thumbnail. Okay, so we're getting a lot of the like, guys. I think we got to steer into this. Like, we really got to go this direction.
Brandon's way funnier than Tony Hinchcliffe
is. That's a tough one for me.
Mookie looks like the Pulp Fiction guy.
That's a new one.
There we go. What else do we got here? Here's one. Kevin comes in with, what chances are higher? Klint Kubiak calls another wacky receiver throw and an interception, or we get a Milroe special, a useless play that ruins the flow of a drive.
Hopefully neither.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Well, if they keep
Cobb said he's retiring
at this
point from throwing. Cobb said he's retiring himself on the throws. 0 for 6.
Well, and we're really finding out a lot about Mike McDonald this year, and he loves to use his little press conferences throughout the week to throw a little subterfuge out there. He was adamant 2 weeks ago that not only was Jalen Milroe going to stay active on game day, but we have a bigger package for him, and we want to get to those plays, and there's even more for him. And he hasn't been active since on game day. So I think that's kind of been shelved for now, which, by the way, I saw some comments earlier. It doesn't mean we wasted a 3rd-round pick. The future's yet to be told about Jalen Milroe. It's just he's going to have to find another team to be a starter for. So then it's just a question of what he ends up being worth in trade at some point in his career. But anyway, just a little side note there.
Megan comes in with, greetings, gents. 9 weeks gone already. Let's blanking go Hawks. So 45 months of being a member. So I'm assuming that's over on your side there, Brandon.
I believe that's correct. Yes, sir. Thank you, Megan.
All right. We've got Robert in here. He goes, you're not alone, Dan. I've been here since 1976 as well, through the good and the bad times. I'm never going to live this down now. And it wasn't meant to be an ageism thing, Dan. I swear.
Yeah. We watched football on tube TVs. That's how old we are.
What, did you have the bunny ears going certain directions?
Fun. Yeah. They
didn't you don't know about the aluminum foil on the bunnies.
They didn't even have remote controls, boys.
You don't know about that.
You had to fight for the chair closest to the TV so you could get to it first and change the channel.
Oh, man. Cal came in with a $10 donation and a super sticker. So that's awesome. Appreciate that, Cal.
Thank you, Cal.
Megan came back in with a $2 donation. She goes, FYI, Bryce, 4 months younger than the team here. Okay. Again, don't come at me. I wasn't making it as a remark about
He's
that.
An ageist. Look at it.
That's exactly what I am. Completely an ageist.
You got to lean into the bit, Bryce.
Yeah, I could lean into the bit a little bit. Like it's okay. I got
Bring it
the
on.
other day. Well, no, it was
good.
on a side note, guys. A side note. We were at the Huskies game. Myself, my best friend, and his significant other, and my wife. And we're walking out of the stadium, and we're going up into kind of where the campus dormitory area is. And this kid going by on one of those scooters loses his hat, and it flies to the other side of the road. Well, earlier when we're walking up, one of the security guards referred to my buddy who is 40, and I'm in my early-ish 30s still, as a young buck. Well, when I go and pick up this young dude's hat, he looks at me and goes, "Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate it." And I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, my friend that's 40 that's behind me is getting called a young buck, and I'm getting called sir. Like, I don't look that old, but apparently I do to some people. So I'll lean into it.
You are Sir Bryce, not Coach Bryce.
Yeah, I know, right?
Sir
Apparently.
Coach Bryce.
So Cal comes back in with another $10 donation. He goes,
Aw.
"I like what I see. Appreciate you, Cal, man. That's awesome."
Thank you, Cal.
And another $3 to $99 sticker there. So Cal, you're just being super generous, man. Can't appreciate and thank you enough for that. What else we got here? Cal again, man. Cal just was on it. Like, I wonder if he like got a twitch and just kept hitting the button. It's fantastic. He goes, SKOL Eagles.
Skull. Who are
Skull.
the Eagles even playing this weekend?
Who are the Eagles playing this
They're on a
weekend?
bye.
Actually?
Yeah, they're on a
Yeah,
bye.
they are. Yeah. So that's an interesting one. Cal back in, and I know he corrected this later on. He goes, "Yeah, Hawks Nest, not Eagles Nest." So that's a good sign there. Megan is saying to you, Brandon, be nice. I'm about the same age as Dan.
Oh, I'm old. No, I'm about the same age as Dan too. So I'm me and Dan are standing tandem on this. We're going to Bryce. Bryce
Yeah,
Kubiak.
exactly. I'm the one up in the corner getting
I'm older
blasted.
than you,
Mookie, come on. Mookie, I think you're younger than me. You're supposed to kind of be on my side in this whole situation.
Yeah, well, I'm catching up on you.
Someone said in the comments, "You're only as old as you feel." I would dispute that. You're only as old as you look. I think I look good for my age. I feel like shit. I just hide it well. I woke up injured today. I just woke up with an injury today. So that's what my life is like.
Dan comes in with Cup will be the biggest surprise of the second half of the season. That's
like
the guy that I do too.
I think he's been getting, and I get people looking at wanting to get out a receiver here. I do. But I think some of that is not, there's a little bit of a lack of identifying. Number one, JSN's taking up 44% of the target share of this passing offense, which means there's not much left over for anybody there. And Cup's getting the job done when you're watching the 22. He's generating separation. When you're throwing the ball, he's catching it. He's showing off still some of that yak ability that he had with the Rams, which is you need in this offense. I'm perfectly fine with what we're getting from Cooper Kupp.
And the blocking aspect of Cooper Kupp too. Like his blocking has been so key on some of those runs that have been able to finally get to the outside and get up. It's Kupp making key blocks, whether it be the first level or even the second level. And I'm with you, Brandon. Like for what we are paying Cooper Kupp and what we are getting in return, in some respects, is better than what I potentially thought we might get in return.
Yeah. Agreed.
So we got Corey here. He goes, "I can't wait to see the dime package with Eamon and Spoon. Seeing those two blitz is going to be fun." That's
though. Mike McDonald was asked today about how he's going to work all these guys in together. And somebody brought up the concept of a dime package and McDonald kind of shot him down and said, well, typically teams that run a lot of dime aren't very good against the run. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of that. I think it's going to come down to the snap share and how he mixes and matches having those guys on the field.
So it's an interesting point. Okay, go ahead, Brandon.
Oh no, I didn't mean to. I agree with Dan on this. The team's not going to conceptually run dime. 4 wide receiver sets are almost out of the NFL completely. It's a tight end that's the 4th wide receiver if they're going to run it. To Dan's point about inability to defend the run, we're going to run 4 corners against 3 wide and a tight end. You don't probably want to do that. I think Witherspoon's going to the outside. I think that was the plan here all the way. Was Nick Eamon takes over the slot duties and Witherspoon goes to the outside. I think that's where you're going to see him probably 90% of the time as we move through the rest of this year. Just my prediction on it.
Yeah, and then I think they'll pick their spots and they'll slide him in when you're not expecting it or whatever. We've seen a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. We saw it Monday and we saw it against the Cardinals where both corners blitz at the same time, one of them out wide. We've seen Job come. I can see that scenario. Yeah.
So this is the thing for me as an offense coordinator, when I'm used to seeing dime packages and how they usually presented in some way or a fashion, you really know who your one true linebacker is because he's usually in the box on his own. And to the point, you see the 4 wide look, everyone's kind of marked up over. And that's generally, they slide into the edge a little bit. what I think we may see isn't what most people would consider a dime package. It'll still be a 4-2-5 look, but they will pull Drake Thomas off and literally put Nick Eamon-Warry as the weak side linebacker and play that look. And that's where you might see Witherspoon occasionally slide in, like be a sub package. To me, that's not dime. That's still a base look. You've just substituted a player that equals that of your weak side linebacker. And Nick Eamon-Warry, given his size and athletic ability, can play in that spot where Drake Thomas is currently playing in certain sub packages where you might want to change things up and maybe get a matchup that way that you like with a blitz or whatever you want to do. But to your point, Brandon, I don't think you'll see a traditional dime set for the Seattle Seahawks.
I also think it's possible Witherspoon blitzes less. Because honestly, his blitzes are not highly effective or haven't been highly effective the last year and change. He did get one on that double cap blitz in the Arizona game on that failed flea flicker. But I think I kind of want to see Witherspoon in coverage more and see him in Warrior down, have as many pass rushing opportunities as possible where he can get downhill.
Agreed. So we got, I can't even pronounce that name. I'm not going to try. We got M. I'm just going to go with M. And he goes, what strikes me about this team is that it has no fluky wins, but both its losses are a little fluky, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, no BS kind of win where, I mean, there was something a little bit fluky about the Pittsburgh touchdown that Holani scored, because you don't normally, even when a kick just goes like that, for it to die in the end zone, at the back of the end zone like that is incredible. But they dominated that game. And honestly, they should have won by more if not for their own mistakes. But yes, their wins for the most part have looked very impressive, with some warts here and there. And their losses have been, could have been a play here, could have been a play there. Can't really say that about the wins where I think, man, Seattle got away with one, in terms of it could have easily been a loss, from a close win. Whereas the losses, I go, man, just one play here and there, and they could be 7-0. Totally different than the last couple of years where it's like, that's daylight robbery they just pulled off.
Well, and I think the thing that really backs up your point there is this is when you get to the time of season, as I touched on earlier, where point differential becomes a much more consistent indicator of how good a team is. Seahawks right now are at a plus 57 at 5-2. The San Francisco 49ers are 5-3 with a minus 4 point differential. It's as that sample size grows, it lends itself to the narrative that like, 49ers have been a little more fortunate and have been winning closer games, whereas the Seahawks have been more convincing.
All right. We got Feed Me More Seahawks coming in with a $2 donation. He goes, do we have a Thursday night football stream, Brandon? Oh, Brandon muted himself again.
Sorry, guys. I will be having a Thursday night stream. I don't know if it'll be the football one because I don't want to watch Baltimore and Miami. Really, that's an awful game. But definitely probably have a members only stream that we can at least BS on.
All right, Cal comes back in with another $2-ish donation. Can I send you a Venmo request, Brandon?
Yes, Cal, you can send me a Venmo request for sure. It's down in my description section below. There's a link to my Venmo deal there. So
I wanted to touch on that though. I tried to answer it in the comments because there was a little bit of misconception. I think there was a part of a thread there that was going on for a while. Some confusion because we stream this show back to all of our sites, even though we rotate who's hosting it, that the where your money's going. And that's why we decided to do it this way and just kind of even it out. So when you send a super chat or a super sticker, it's the channel you send it on. That's where the money's going to go. And so just to clear that up for everybody.
All right. We've got, I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. And this one's for you, Dan. He goes, I'm a bit confused about why there's so much smoke about trading for a wide receiver. Kubiak has toys he's not using now. Arroyo, Barner, Cup. Why do we need another mouth to feed?
Could not agree more. I've just stopped debating with people about this issue, like this need for a weapon. We need someone that can take the top off, and we need a faster receiver and someone to threaten defenses. Where's the volume to support that? And the justification for giving up any significant resources to go get another receiver who's not going to get a target share. It takes receivers a little more time. They can't just walk in off the street and absorb the entire playbook. So you got to work them in. We're not getting enough targets, in my opinion. I'd like to see Torrey Horton get more targets. I'd like to see the tight ends get more targets. Shoot the running backs. Right now, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet combined, we saw last year what Walker can do when he's involved in the pass game. combined right now are on pace to catch fewer balls as a duo this year than Alvin Kamara did last year by himself playing for Klint Kubiak. So I'd like to see some of those guys get more targets. Acquiring another wide receiver at this point makes zero sense to me at all. So good call, X-Wing.
I think Barner's being used just fine. He's got 18 catches for 212 and 4 touchdowns, and he's third in the team in targets.
Arroyo is the guy that we've seen some signs of it, right? We saw the scramble play against the Cardinals. We saw early in those scripted session against the Texans. He was heavily involved in the game plan. I feel like the breakout for him is coming.
Yep.
All right. And to the point, Feed Me More Seahawks comes in, $2 donation. I love having a complete tight end in AJ Barner. Yeah. And think about how we all felt, roughly, a majority of us felt last year at training camp. Dan, we were there. Curtis was there. And it was, man, Barner doesn't look like he moves really well. Like, we drafted this kid. Like, hopefully he can fulfill the blocking. Now we're talking about a guy that is turning into one of the better, well-rounded tight ends in the NFL.
He's a good working man's tight end. The John Carlson of 2025, if you will. We always have to get that reference as an inside joke between Bryce and myself. And let's be real, with the sad history of Seahawks tight ends, the bar for him to become the greatest tight end in Seahawks history is about ankle high. Jimmy Graham is statistically the best tight end the Seahawks have ever had because he owns all the statistical passing game records. But as an all-around tight end, Barner could easily be that if he sticks around.
Jeffrey comes in with, we're not really contenders until we beat the Niners and the Rams. End of story. And Jay's about to beat the Dodger machine, by the way, with a $5 donation.
Well, they already did 6-1. So the Dodgers have a chance to do the funniest thing ever to the Blue Jays, who were down 3-2 heading back to Toronto. We know the story there. Well, wouldn't it just be something if they're on the cusp of the World Series and the machine gets them in 6 and 7 in their own backyard?
Sorry, guys, 1 sec.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, we're talking baseball. I'm out.
Yeah, Brandon's like, I'm done with this. It's not,
I don't even remember what the original comment was, other than the baseball. I just want to get that joke in.
By the way, I just realized that he took the cat tree away from his background.
I was going to say, I noticed that too. I was going to say, where is Pumpkin hanging out there usually beside him? It's like his camera's on a new angle too. So
it looks good, but now I miss Pumpkin. He's kind of he's part of the syndicate. Yeah, we're just lamenting. We were just lamenting the removal of the cat tree from your background there, Brandon. We miss.
She hasn't been jumping up onto it as much, so it just has been sitting up there empty. Or I don't know what's been going on. If she likes the old tree better or whatever. I got the good, nice, fancy new one, and she's like, I don't want this one.
I don't have a place for him, but Butch would fit in nicely with the syndicate as he is. He always wears all black.
Oh yeah,
yeah, exactly. There you go. All right, I'd rather be flying next week. Another $5 donation. He goes, Nathan Robertson and I came up with Darnold's nickname, Sam the Ghostbuster Darnold.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
very good one. That's a thumbnail waiting to happen right there.
Do the red circle with the thing through it and have him coming through like the ghost.
Well, I was thinking you put him in the old Ghostbuster uniform and just put his face on.
Yeah,
it.
Oh, that's even better. Yeah, because I guess my idea was, the ghost belongs in the middle there. Okay, it's nice. I like that. Which, by the way, I was driving through rural, just randomly a few weeks ago. We went and saw some family. I was driving through rural Ohio, and a car went driving by us on this country road, full on Ghostbuster station wagon, decked out, all the equipment on top, the whole thing. Don't know what the story was, but just not something you expect to see in Ohio.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I saw the other day driving around where I live here, someone had a Back to the Future car fully decked out, like full on DeLorean, all the specs and everything to Back to the
Flux
Future.
capacitor.
Yeah, it had everything on top of it, all the bells and whistles. It looked pretty cool. But
Nice.
Feed Me More Seahawks with another donation. He goes, you think Robbie Oots can help the run game? And do you all think Myles Garrett being angry is collectively hilarious?
Yes and yes. It's like, dude, you signed the contract.
Yeah.
I know Cleveland wasn't ever going to really trade you, but I mean, he was briefly a Seahawk, if you believe Reddit rumors, once upon a time. Yeah. I'll actually like to see Robbie Oots get a few targets too. Like, I'm not saying he needs to be a 3-target guy a game, but like just get a couple to him. The way that the Niners use check, for example.
Yeah,
run that play again. Say that they ran against the Chiefs. We've talked about that a lot, Bryce. That little option route where he little zigzag outside. I think he can be a little sneaky, important part of the pass game. Get that third down rate up.
Yeah, no, their third down rate definitely needs to come up because I think they're currently sitting at 27th in the NFL in conversion rate right now, which is not a great stat to be sitting at third down wise.
They tanked it in 2 weeks, but the red zone rate is still the red zone points per drive is 11th, which is huge improvement from seasons past.
Yeah.
Feed Me More Seahawks again, another $2 donation, guys. These donations are absolutely fantastic. Can't appreciate it enough from all of you that are contributing to each other's shows here. But I don't think we ever called DK or Doug a top 3 receiver in the NFL, is what I think Feed Me More Seahawks is going at. And I that 1 year Doug had in 2015 is the only year I think we could have potentially said Doug was a top 3 receiver that year in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. And DK's had an actual second team all-pro season, but probably he's never strayed anywhere close to top 5. And now that teams are playing 2 safeties back, in a way, 2020 hurt Russ and DK in different ways because of the way that defensive coverage has changed, because it hurt the way that they both like to play. DK's actually having a good season in Pittsburgh, but I don't think he's ever going to be a truly elite receiver.
No, and 2015 is the only one I stand. Like, Doug was really good. Don't get me wrong, and Doug had some good seasons. But that 2015 season where, we ended up losing to Carolina in the playoff game, what him and Russ did through that, basically the majority of that season, was pretty phenomenal. I mean, the amount of times where Russ would just drop back and be like, oh yeah, like the games that come to mind, that Minnesota game where he just like knows he's going to get smoked and just lays it up, and Doug's just down the field wide open for a touchdown. That was kind of like that to me. 2015 really was the Doug Baldwin coming out season of him being a true number 1 receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. John McGrath here, he goes, love the Syndicate, great show and tons of great info and insights. Just do a show wearing all black Mafia gear, please. So appreciate that, John.
Of insights. Are we a riot?
Yeah, no kidding.
Guess I need to make a trip to Goodwill here soon, right?
Do we all get like fedora hats? Is that what we wear and wear them on a slight angle? Is that what we do?
I don't know. I think you just go with what feels good. I think I might go with like a newsboy.
Fair enough. I'm more interested in what Brandon's going to look like, because I feel like Brandon's got like the Godfather look with the way the chair is and everything. Like, you could just sit there, spin around slowly.
Like a walk-in closet that has all the suits lined up by color.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I wish. I got to go get a suit.
Exactly. Goodwill.
Another donation from Feed Me More Seahawks. JSN going 21 miles per hour was not on my bingo card.
How about the vertical jump? I was a little bit surprised how easily he got up over the goalpost.
Yeah. No, that was
impressive.
That was impressive. The thing for me about that too was like, most guys dunk it and then let go, but he just kind of stood there and hung with it for a bit. And it was like, that's really impressive that you got up that high with that vertical and then just kind of hung out there for like, a couple seconds. And then the funnier thing was the NFL goes and finds him, but they want to use that as their thumbnail for their highlight video for the first couple of days. Oh man. Max Bailey comes in with Tyrese Knight forced a fumble, but it was on our own guy. It is true. They did force a fumble in the Arizona game. It was just Tyrese Knight taking out Kobe Bryant.
And Ernest Jones forced a fumble on CJ Stroud that if Drake Thomas had better hands, would have been a fumble return touchdown instead of having to repeat the down and that craziness.
Max, it's a good point, but it does not show up in the stat sheet. So,
and also, didn't Boye Mafe have a strip sack too in that game against Houston, and it got called back as well?
Yeah, because Ernest held. So Ernest was involved in both. That ended up not counting. Yep.
See, Ernest just doesn't want the fumbles unless he's the one that's going to be the recipient of it. So I'd rather be flying X-Wing. To Brandon here, he goes, can we give John Schneider a victory lap for not signing Will Fries?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly, I think the second you were going to be able to take a physical on a guy that missed so many games last year, that was, to me, made it understandable why you didn't go for him there. I think the fact that Anthony Bradford's performance still shows that those of us that said you need to do more on this offensive line than just say Gray Zabel, this offensive line, are being validated in that. Sundale is playing like a top, 32 center. and Bradford's playing like a bottom of the barrel right guard. So, you know, I do come back to that, and especially those picks in that third round, and you go, you know, could there have been a better path here on this one? So it didn't have to be necessarily free agency. I understood that there was a lot of bodies out there you go get, but if that's the case, then all the much more reason you got to address it in the draft and address it majorly.
What's fun about that, and Fries isn't playing terrible in Minnesota. That interior offensive line as a whole isn't much better than it was a year ago, and Kelly's hurt again. But I love playing with like alternate timeline scenarios and the time space continuum, and you just have to wonder if because if you remember the reporting that night, it was that it was gonna take overnight. The Seahawks were on the verge of signing him, and then we got some reporting after the fact that he came back. His camp came back to the Seahawks and said, "Here's what the Vikings have offered us. Will you match it?" And of course, they weren't willing to go 5 years and $81 million on a guy coming off a serious injury like that. But you have to wonder, or at least I do, because I'm a sicko, if they had signed Fries 3 years, $51 million, more money than they would have ever paid an offensive lineman of any kind up until that point, would they still have drafted Zabel in the first round? Would they have leaned into that? And then you have to wonder, this is just me spitballing, would he have played center? Because there are some scouts and there are some analysts that thought that long-term that might be his actual better position. I just kind of play around with that scenario and wonder what that would look like.
So it's interesting you said that, because it's made me think about this, you know, potential of a trade for Cesar Ruiz down there in New Orleans. Is if you trade for him and he's on a deal still, so you're going to have him for more than just this season, I believe.
2 more years.
Do you move him in the offseason to center and draft a right guard, or then do you turn and make right center now your draftable interior position to bring someone to compete with Sundell and Olu? Like, what? That's another, like, what do they do if they make that trade? Because he has the ability to play both.
Yeah, and I thought there's some thought that he's better at center. That's what he played exclusively in college, and then he was converted, as a pro. Obviously nobody would know better than John Bent and Klint Kubiak where they think his skills translate the most. I do think that you're smart to qualify it as in the offseason because, it's been suggested to me that, hey, you go get Ruiz, you put him at center, then you move Sundell over to right guard. As well as a unit as this offensive line is playing, and as much as continuity has been an issue for so long, I don't want to change 2 spots out. So I would play Ruiz at right guard now, where he has been playing for the last couple of years, where he did play for Kubiak last year, because even last year when Eric McCoy got hurt, Shane Lemieux came in and started center so they could try and keep that continuity and keep Ruiz at right guard. And he had some injury issues last year too. That's what I would do for now. But I think the way this coaching staff thinks and operates, and we've seen it, and how they like to cross-train guys, I think in the offseason, they would give him a chance to compete at center and then figure it out from there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Jeff comes back in, $2 donation. Excited for Oots to be back. Dude is a unit. Yep, 100%. Robbie Oots, I think, to, Brandon's point about the boxes and everything, going into an I formation and being able to shift a little bit, that can sometimes help you. And the amount of times you could line up theoretically in 21 personnel with Oots or Walker or Charbonnet behind him, and then shift Robbie into the other tight end spot and look like you're in a 12 personnel, because he does have that flexibility from his days of playing a tight end, gives you a little bit of more flexibility to this offense than I think Brady Russell did in that spot. And I think we saw that with the fact they kind of got away from running the, I formation with Brady Russell.
There's just a strength factor that Oots has that Russell just doesn't have.
Yep, he's going to be a much more improvement over the top of it. We'll see with the stack box thing. I think still going to affect some of this, but he's definitely a big-time upgrade as a fullback there.
Megan comes back, was at the Sydney casino a few weeks ago, and was asked for my ideas. The guard thought I was in my 20s. I'm 49 in 5 weeks, and that was a $5 donation. Well, there you go.
Appreciate
Thank you so much.
That's a compliment.
See what you've done, Bryce. See what you've done.
I didn't intend for it to turn into this. This is now going to have to be retitled the Seahawks Syndicate. Age is just a number show.
The AARP may be contacting you.
You went right out the gate, man.
I wasn't trying to. I was trying to pay Dan a compliment by the fact he has so much history with this team, but now everyone's taking it in the complete. Megan comes back with a $2 donation, and it goes, "Not going to happen, Mookie. Let's go Blue Jays."
Yeah, careful where you say that around these here parts. The city is still probably reeling. So
I'm not a Blue Jays fan. I live in Canada. I will never cheer for the Toronto Blue Jays. Here we go. Megan back in with another $5 donation. Bryce, my avatar is Marty McFly when I saw Back to the Future and the musical in Sydney a month ago, and I sat in a DeLorean. Well, there you go. And that, again, cult classic movies. Back to the Future is a fantastic one. Well, guys, that kind of like wraps up a lot of those, chats that we had. So I think we're going to get out of here. It's been 2 hours and 15 minutes on this. It's been a pretty long Seahawks Syndicate. So what I'll do before that, guys, and we'll go counterclockwise. So we'll start with Dan on this one. Dan, what do you got going on over at Seahawks Forever? I know you mentioned the Stacey Ross show, but what else you got coming out between now and the game on Sunday?
Yeah, just put that show up. And then tomorrow, Rob Guerrero and I will do the NFC West mixtape and kind of do a first half look back on the whole division. Corbin Smith's joining me tomorrow. We're going to talk a lot about his what he's hearing about the trade deadline. And then just want to point people over to my Patreon page because that's the umbrella now under which everything lives. My Seahawks content, my Mariners content, anything else I might do. You get everything, audio, video, Substack, Discord. And then we're doing something that we're calling the Bracket of Boom, where every month the viewers will be able to choose a topic that I do a video on, do it in tournament form as we go throughout the month. So check that out. That link will be down below, or you can check it out on my page.
Sounds great. And Dan, I always check out all your content that comes out because you get some fantastic guests over there on the Seahawks Forever. Brandon, what do you got going on over there, man, at the Hawks Nest? Looking forward to your live stream coming up on Sunday to watch that while I watch the game.
Appreciate you for doing that, man. It was good having you on the other night doing the play-by-play. And we got B&B show tomorrow, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And then coming back on Sunday, we'll be back with the live play-by-play on the game.
Mookie, what do you got going over at Field Goals? I know it's bye week's always a fun time to get a bunch of different articles going on. So what do you got going on over there?
Yeah, I'll do my kind of a preview of the second half of the season and things that they need to work on or things that have been great up to this point. So those might probably be two separate articles. We'll have a preview column from Alexandre Castro, our big film analyst. And also I'll be doing something with you on Sunday morning. We're going to have a little show ahead of the Commanders game. And then, of course, we'll have our usual game day coverage over at Field Goals throughout Sunday night and into Monday. So hopefully it's a normal Seahawks primetime game, which is to say absolutely insane, but usually ends in a Seahawks win.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully it won't turn out like this.
Oh man, what a weird game.
Hopefully it won't be
that's such a good sound clip there, Dan.
I forgot or I would have used it when I was talking about the Tampa Bay game earlier.
Well, see, and I'm just hoping we don't go into this game and then we come out of it and then we're thinking about them as contenders and we're saying
no, not this time. It's totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction.
Total fabrication.
Oh man, I gotta get one of those things you and Dan both have there, Brandon, that you can play those clips with. I gotta get myself one of those. It's one of the things I don't have yet over on the Hawk side. But over on the Hawk side, guys, just released a video with an interview with Greg Bell. Fantastic insight there from Greg on what's going on inside that locker room. Did an earlier one this week with Corbin Smith, another good one. And then I have Jeff Simmons' show that I did with him from earlier this week coming out tomorrow, so keep your eyes out for that. And then me and Mookie will be doing a live preview show 11 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday to get you guys ready for that Sunday night matchup with the Washington Commanders. So, guys, other than that, I guess this will wrap it up. We've got one more donation that just popped in here, and I'll put that up on the screen for Dylan. He goes, appreciate all you guys putting in the hard work. Thank you, Dylan, for that. Appreciate you tuning into the show and everyone else. We had 1,100 people watch the show tonight, guys, so that's amazing for everyone that tuned in. Went a bit long, but always enjoy these every month that we do these, guys. So I guess it'll be end of November the next time we all kind of get back together. So let's try and close this out with a Go Hawks, and we're going to do it on 1, 2, 3. I believe that we can do this. We've had a bye week of prep, guys. We got to be able to nail this. So, okay, here we go. And it's after 3, just to specify. 1, 2, 3.
Go
Hawks.